Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement seminar. In this seminar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know in the 3 years leading up to retirement, or maybe even the 3 months or 3 weeks leading up to retirement, because you're going to retire soon and you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know? Or what do I need to do, if anything? Well, I'm going to answer all of those questions for you, and I have arranged the answers to your questions in the form of this checklist. So this is your pre-retirement checklist that we're going to go through during the presentation. We'll cover all of these topics. First off, I will help you understand your membership, and I'll talk about this, and this goes pretty quickly. I'll just talk about some basics about your Acera membership. I'll tell you about your contributions to Acera. We'll look at a retirement timeline. I'll tell you about your tier. Okay, then next item on the checklist, I'm going to help you get a retirement benefit estimate. And as part of that broader discussion, it's really helpful to you, I find, if I explain the retirement formula to you. This is how we actually calculate the pension benefit that you're going to receive once you retire. And if you understand the retirement formula, it will help you better understand how we arrive at your retirement benefit and will help you get an estimated pension benefit. Okay, so as part of the discussion, I will also mention briefly considering purchasing service credit. We will talk at length about how vacation affects the salary component of your retirement formula. And I will actually show you screenshots of the benefit estimator tool and show you how to use it. Then in the second half of the presentation, I will help you verify your retirement eligibility. I will talk about choosing your retirement date and tell you all the things you might want to know about that. We'll talk about the process that you actually physically use to retire. As part of that discussion, I'll tell you the retirement process and the 5 retirement allowance options that affect your retirement allowance and possibly what your beneficiaries will be eligible for after you pass away. Then we'll talk about understanding other benefits. I will talk about medical, dental, vision benefits, and then a few other bullet points on some other life events that you may experience. We'll talk about signing up for Acera News. Okay, let's jump right in. The first item on the checklist is understanding your Acera membership. So who is Acera? Well, in one sense, Acera is this acronym, the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association, but it's made up of a lot of people. There's about 90 of us that work here, and what we do, our entire job, is to provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to all of our members. That's you. You are members of Acera, so you are part of the Who is Acera. And you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. At some point during your career, either currently or in the past, you worked full-time. And that full-time work was in a retirement eligible position for one of Acera's 6 participating employers. So if you work for one of these public agencies in Alameda County and you work in that retirement eligible position, that automatically made you an Acera member. So your membership was automatic. You automatically joined Acera. And as an Acera member, you contribute to Acera's fund with every paycheck. So you have part of your paycheck comes out, and I may have a screenshot. Nope. Part of your paycheck comes out and it's called your employee contribution. So if you look at the before tax deductions column of your paycheck, you'll see a line that says retirement. Maybe it says your tier in there, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. And that money coming out of your paycheck, that's going into Acera's fund. And your employer is also contributing on your behalf. And we don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. So we invest it all over the world and earn a lot of interest on that money. And it's these 3 sources of income that give us this big pool of money that we call Acera's fund. So what do we do with this money? Well, meanwhile, you are earning credit toward retirement as you work. As you work your job, you earn more and more credit toward retirement, and you earn it in 3 different categories, which I'll talk about in a few minutes when I talk about the retirement formula. So you're earning credit toward retirement, and at some point in the future, for some of you, it may be very soon, because you're in the pre-retirement webinar, you will retire. And it's at this point that you stop earning credit toward retirement and you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. in the form of a monthly retirement allowance that you will receive for the rest of your life. This is a payment that you will receive direct deposit on the last business day of the month for the rest of your life. It's known as your monthly retirement allowance, your pension benefit, your retirement benefit. These are all synonymous terms for this concept that you will receive a payment based on what you earned, based on the credit you earned toward retirement every month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It's an amazing thing to be able to participate in a defined benefit pension plan like you do, because it is a secure payment that you can count on. You can get estimates of it prior to retiring to plan for your future. And then once you retire, you can count on that payment plus cost of living increases throughout your retirement. And we'll talk about the cost of living increases and the retirement payments and all that pretty soon during the presentation. So first, while we're talking broadly about ACERA, I find it's helpful to look at this pension milestone chart, and this will define some of the milestones that you'll see in your career regarding your ACERA membership. And because you're in a pre-retirement webinar, you've probably already passed some of these milestones. The first one is your date of hire. This is your first day of work in that retirement eligible position. So if you started out working for your employer in some other capacity, like part-time or under contract or for a temp agency, this was the first day that you worked in your full-time retirement eligible position. Maybe you've gone down to part-time since then, that's fine. But at that moment, at the date of hire, you were hired into the full-time retirement eligible position. And then for most people, what happens is there is a 2-week lag, and the first day of your second pay period, that is your first day of ACERA membership. And this is when you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, for 2 of our employers, Housing Authority, I think, and Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District, I think, the date of hire and the date of entry are the same. So there's no 2-week lag. Okay, then 5 years goes by. And once you've achieved 5 years of service credit, you've earned 5 years of service credit basically by working 5 full-time years or the equivalent of 5 full-time years, you're considered vested in the retirement system. Vesting is a little bit of a loose concept, but it just kind of means guaranteed. And so there's vested benefits. Those, the synonym for that is guaranteed benefits. So when you reach 5 years, essentially, there's a whole set of benefits that you have access to by achieving that 5 years, a whole set of guaranteed benefits. Okay, then some other indeterminate amount of time goes by and you reach your retirement eligibility date. And you do that by achieving some combination of a certain number of years of service credit in a certain age. And it's going to be a little bit different for everyone what that date is going to be. I'll tell you later on in the second half of the presentation what those combinations are. But this is the first day that you could physically retire on your first day of retirement eligibility. Many, many people do not retire on that day because they want to earn more and more credit toward retirement, which increases your retirement payment, your monthly payment in retirement more and more and more the more credit you earn. So many people will work after the retirement eligibility. I would say probably the vast majority of people. So the next pension milestone date is your last day on payroll with your employer, also known as your termination date. This is the date you leave employment, and this is the day that you stop earning credit toward retirement. So you will earn credit toward retirement right up until the minute that you leave work that day. We calculate your service credit down to the fraction of a day. That's why if you look at you log into your account on our website and you look at your service credit number, it'll say like 15.872562. And so that's us. All those decimal places are us calculating your retirement down to the fraction of a day. Okay, now the next date is your first day of retirement. And the reason that they are very close here is because many people will go straight from active work into retirement, which means that these would be 2 consecutive days. And many people do that. Many of you are probably planning on doing that. And so your retirement date is the day that you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. Now, some of you may not do that. You may leave work and there may be a gap where you don't retire immediately, and that is becoming what we call a deferred member. You defer your retirement to a later date, and then there would be a gap between these 2 dates, and that's fine. We'll talk about that, what happens if you do that a little bit later in the presentation. Okay, so now you're retired on the timeline. and you start collecting the pension that you've been earning throughout your entire career. And you're going to collect that every month until your death. That's when your retirement payments stop. Now, there's another milestone on here. At the time of retirement, you selected a retirement option, and many of the options will allow you to leave a continuance payment, which is a continuing monthly payment to a beneficiary after your death. And so that's why in many cases, especially if it's spouse or domestic partner, it can continue for the rest of their life. So that's the final milestone on the chart. Your beneficiary's death is when those continuance payments would stop. And that would be the conclusion of the benefits paid out to you from Acera. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to introduce you to this worksheet. If you saw the link, there was a link for the worksheet in the email that you received if you're watching this live. Otherwise, let me show you how to get to that worksheet. And this is just an optional thing to do. This is kind of like a way to just make some notes. It's a sheet that we've prepared that allows you to take some notes while you're watching the webinar if you want. So here's our website, acera.org. Go under news and events, go down to retirement planning seminars, go to that page. And then if you look right here under webinar options, there's the pre-retirement webinar. Oh, and I forgot. We actually extended the webinar 15 minutes to make sure that we cover everything. So actually what's going to happen is for the deferred compensation presentation, it'll just start at 12:15 and go until 1 p.m., just so you all know. Sorry that I wasn't clear on that earlier. Okay, so there's a link here, retirement planning worksheet. Pop that open. That's a PDF. I recommend not filling it out in your browser. Go ahead and click the download button in your browser to download that to your device, and then you can fill it out. You can type things into the fillable fields, or you could print it out and do it on pencil or pen. What this is, like I was saying, is this is just kind of a easier way to take notes. As you learn the different numbers that apply to your retirement situation, you can fill those in here. And I'll revisit the different sections of this to help you think about the different concepts that we're going to talk about. So for right now, going back to the presentation, and also there's a quick link to it if you go to acera.org/worksheet. At this point, looking at the My Career Timeline section of the worksheet, you could fill in your Acera entry date if you happen to know it. If you don't happen to know it exactly, I've written approximate dates up here because the Acera entry date, in many cases, it's not super important to know exactly what it is. But if you do happen to want to know exactly what it is, you can log into our website by going to acera.org and clicking the login button, and it will tell you what your exact Acera entry date is in there. At this point, you could also pencil in a projected retirement date if you happen to have one in mind. And I say pencil it in because we are going to talk in the second half about choosing your retirement date, and you may learn some things that may make you want to adjust your date a little bit here or there. Okay. So just a couple more points about vesting. It happens at 5 years of service credit. It includes reciprocal service. Reciprocity is where you have linked different retirement systems together in California, and you get some synergy by linking them together. One of the synergistic effects is that service credit you earn under any reciprocal system, like if you worked over in Contra Costa County for 2 years and now you come over to Acera and work for 3 years, that gets you over the 5-year vesting requirement. And that will also apply to the retirement eligibility years when we get to that topic. So just a quick note about that. And the guarantee, I said vesting means guaranteed. The guarantee comes from state law. And the vested benefits are the monthly retirement benefit, monthly retirement allowance for life, an annual cost of living increase to that, and a $1,000 lump sum death benefit. Now, there's going to be some other death benefits that go with the different retirement options. We'll go through all those in detail. I will also talk about in detail about how the cost of living adjustment works a little bit later. But those are the vested benefits. Okay, so if you want to, you could fill in your vested date here by just taking your Acera entry date. And if you worked full time, adding 5 years to it. The vesting date isn't super important, especially if it's, was long ago, you already have well more than 5 years of service credit. So, that's optional. Okay, now let me tell you about your tier. You all are in one of these tiers. You're going to look at one of these timelines, and your tier is based on your date of entry into Acera. Okay, so first of all, to find the timeline that you're going to look at, if you're a safety member, which means you're a sheriff's deputy or a probation officer, you're going to look at the bottom timeline. Everyone who's not a safety member is a general member, and general members will look at the top timeline, unless you are a general member who works for the Housing Authority or a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Parks District. And then you will look at the timeline for your employer. And the way this works is, if you entered Acera before the cutoff date for the tier, the last possible day for the tier, that puts you in the earlier tier. So for example, if you entered Acera before July 1st, 1983, so that would be June 30th, 1983, and before, that would have put you in tier 1 as a general member. If you entered Acera July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would put you in tier 2. If you entered Acera January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that puts you in tier 4 for all of the different employers and different membership categories. You'll note that the Housing Authority has a different cutoff for tier 1. LARPD has a tier 3 and not a tier 2, and there's a different cutoff for the safety members. If you entered Acera October 17th, 2010 to December 31st, 2012, you had a choice between tier 2C and tier 2D. If you don't remember what choice you made, and actually this goes for anyone, if you really want to know what tier you are definitively in, again, you just log into our website by going to acera.org and clicking the login button. I'll actually show that to you real fast. So here's our website. On any page, the login button is accessible. It's in the upper right corner. You just click the login button, and then you can log into your account on our site. And once you get in there, it will tell you definitively what tier you're in. Okay, so if you didn't already know what tier you were in, but now you know, or even if you did already know, you can go ahead and mark your tier on your worksheet if you so choose. Now, for safety members, it's actually possible that you may have done some general work. Maybe you started out as a general member, and then you got the job doing this in the safety position. And so you would actually have 2 tiers. So when we go to calculate your retirement, we will use your service credit from your general work and your age factor percentage from your general membership. For one calculation, we'll use those same things from your safety membership for a different calculation. We'll do 2 calculations. They'll both tell us what, they'll both give us a dollar amount for your pension. We'll add them up and we'll send you one check. That'll make more sense when I show you the retirement formula in just a minute. Okay. So if you're a safety member, you could fill out 2 worksheets, or you could just, mark 2 tiers on the same sheet. Okay, next topic. Now that we've covered some pension basics, let me tell you about estimating your retirement benefit. So peering into the future a little ways, depending on how far away your retirement is, and getting an estimate of your retirement benefit. And like I was saying during the table of contents portion, it's very helpful if I explain how we calculate your pension. And that will really help you understand that benefit estimate once you get it. So let me talk about that first. Let me show you our pension formula. When you go to retire, Acera is going to do this calculation for you. So there are 3 factors here. And when I was saying earlier that you are earning credit toward retirement in 3 categories, these are the 3 categories. There's an age factor percentage. The older you are when you retire, the higher the age factor percentage is going to be. And I'll explain how that works in just a minute. Service credits measured in years. So this is time. This age factor percentage is a percentage. Service credit is time in years. How basically, if you work 20 years, you earn 20 years of service credit. And then the highest average monthly salary. This is going to be a average salary calculated based on your highest period of consecutive pay in your career. And I'll break down what period we're looking at in just a few minutes. So essentially, what's going to happen when you retire is you are going to get a percentage of your highest salary that you earned throughout your entire career. You're going to get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service that you have earned, that you have worked and earned. This sentence is saying in English what this multiplication equation is doing. Okay. So you get a percentage of your highest salary for each year of service. Let me give you an example, and that will help illustrate this better. Let's say that the percentage of your highest salary that you are going to get for each year of service is going to be 2%. And let's also say that you work for 20 full-time years, so you earn 20 years exactly of service credit. So your retirement allowance, your monthly retirement allowance is going to be 2% of your highest salary for each one of those 20 years. You're going to get 2% of your salary for each of the 20 years. That means that we are going to multiply these two together. 2% times 20 years is 40%, because that's 2% for each one of the 20 years. Okay, now we know that your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of your highest salary while you were working. Let's say that your highest salary while you were working was $5,000, just to keep putting some numbers in here to illustrate the example further. Well, 40% of 5,000 is 2,000. So when we're multiplying 40% times 5,000, that gives us 2,000. 2,000 is 40% of 5,000. So that means that based on you getting 2% of your highest salary for each one of the 20 years of service, and your highest salary being $5,000, your retirement allowance is $2,000. That's what you're going to get every month for the rest of your life. So that's how that works. The bottom line here is that the higher any of these three numbers are, because it's a multiplication, the higher the age factor percentage, the higher the years of service credit, the more service credit you earn, the higher your salary, that is going to equal a higher monthly retirement allowance for life. So in order to maximize your monthly retirement allowance, what you want to think about is maximizing each of these three numbers: your age factor percentage, your years of service, and your salary. Okay, let me talk about each of these three factors in a little more detail. Now that I've told you shown you how we calculate the whole thing, I'll tell you how we calculate each one of these three numbers, starting with the age factor percentage. Here's how this works. What you're looking at is a sample age factor chart. You're going to look at one column in this chart because you are in one tier, okay? So if you're a general tier 2 member, for example, you're just going to look at the general tier 2 column. If you're a safety member who is in safety 2B, you would just look at this column here, okay? And then you forget about all the other columns. So let's say you're a general tier 2 member, since most people seem to be, and you're going to retire at age 60. Well, we're going to need to do this calculation, okay? So we're going to need to fill in the age factor percentage first off. So we know you're a general tier 2 member. We're going to come to the chart. We're going to go down to age 60, and we're going to see that they intersect at 1.92%. 1.92% would be the percentage of your highest salary that you're going to get for each year of service. That's what we would put in the age factor percentage part of the formula for you. You will notice a few things about the chart. One is that the numbers get bigger the older you are when you retire. Okay, so that's why I was saying maximizing your age factor percentage is just getting older. You'll also notice that there is a maximum age factor percentage for each tier, and that's denoted by the blue box. So if you retired as a general tier 2 member at age 65, you would get 2.43% in the formula for you. If you retired at 66 or 67 or 68 or 69, 70, you'd still get 2.43%. So if you retire at the maximum age for your tier or older, you get the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. You may also notice that I skipped a bunch of ages. And that is because there are so many incremental increases that they don't all fit on the slide, because there is actually an incremental increase in the age factor percentage every 3 months, every quarter year, and it's based on your birthday. So for example, if your birthday is January 15th, 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th. 2 quarters after your birthday is July 15th. 3 quarters after your birthday is October 15th. Then back to your January 15th birthday. Every time you pass one of those dates and don't retire, meaning that you've aged another quarter year, there's actually a slight incremental percentage increase. You go up 1 notch in the age factor chart for that quarter year. So if this were the full chart, it would say 60, 60 and a quarter, 60 and a half, 60 and 3/4, 61, and so on and so forth. And if you do want to see all of those increases because you enjoy percentages and math, we do have them posted out on our website. Okay. So I think that is all I wanted to tell you about the age factor percentages. Let me tell you about service credit, the second factor in the formula. So here is the pension milestone timeline again. You begin earning service credit when you enter SARA, and you will earn service credit all the way up until your last day on payroll. And like I was saying earlier, it's calculated down to the fraction of a day. So you get all of those decimal places in the formula, and they all add up to increasing your retirement allowance. Now, there are some types of time where you earn service credit. Of course, you earn service credit during your regular work hours. So while you're working, you're earning service credit. Also, when you go out on your earned leave times, including earned vacation leave, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays, you earn service credit during that time already. Those don't count against you in terms of calculating your pension. So you don't even have to worry about that. You can just take your earned leave. Now, there are some types of time where you do not earn service credit. If you're ever out on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit. So if you're out on leave and you're not getting a paycheck from your employer, you're not earning service credit during that time. Okay, the second type is if you purchase additional vacation on top of your earned vacation, some of our employers will allow that. You don't earn service credit while you're out on that purchased vacation. So if you purchased a week of vacation and then you mark the purchased vacation on your timesheet, during that week, you're not earning service credit. But some people have some emotions about that. My advice is don't sweat it, because if you are missing a week here or there because of a purchased vacation, it's not going to have that big of an impact on your retirement allowance. Whenever I've sat down and done the math on that, it's not a big deal. So if you wanted to make up for it, you could think about, working a few weeks at the end of your career more to make up for it. But like I said, I wouldn't sweat it. Okay, next category. If you sell your earned vacation, so this is not purchased vacation, this is you having earned vacation and you're selling it back to your employer. Some of our employers will allow that. You don't get service credit for sold vacation. You just get cash. But actually, because you get cash, this could increase your salary in the salary component of the formula. And we will talk about that extensively in just a few minutes when I move on to the salary part of the formula. Okay. But you don't get service credit for it. You also don't get service credit for overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Okay, now there are some types of time that are eligible for you to purchase. And the idea here is that there's some types of time that if the situation was slightly different, maybe you could have earned service credit, but the law did not allow for you to. But because of that, the law does allow for you to then go back and buy it. And some examples are like if you did part-time work for your employer before you got your full-time retirement eligible position, and I'm not talking about working for a temporary agency or under contract. This is just plain old part-time, or some other examples of labels that they give it are like seasonal or intermittent, or service as needed. Those are examples of time that is eligible for you to purchase now that you're an SARA member. Also, the county's temporary assignment pool, which is what TAP stands for, that's all purchasable. That 2-week lag time between your date of hire and date of entry is purchasable. Unpaid medical leave, including medical and unpaid medical leave and unpaid disability leave. When you return from those leaves, you can buy that time up to a year per instance. Also military leave when you go out. If you were to go out on military leave during your active membership, and this is not prior military service, this is going out on military leave during your active membership, you can buy that when you return from that leave. Redeposits of prior memberships. If you used to be an NESARA member and you left and you took a refund of your employee contributions, and then you came back and you want to put that money back and get your service credit back, you can do that. If you used to work for another California public agency, you may be able to buy that time as a SARA service credit. There's also one more category not listed here where you got divorced or dissolved a domestic partnership and your ex-spouse or partner took part of your account with them. And so they got some of your service credit and a corresponding amount of your employee contributions. If they ever take a refund of their account, we'll send you a letter in the mail. And this is prior to you retiring. We'll send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that, and you can purchase that time. And redepose that. You can redeposit that money basically, and you get that service credit back. And that's called a redeposit of community property. There's a full list at acera.org/purchase. I'm not going to take a deep dive into purchasing service credit. In this presentation, I do in the new employee/mid-career webinar. We do have videos of that out on our website, and I'll show you where that is. acera.org, go under news and events, go down to retirement planning seminars. Scroll down to the heading where it says watch anytime past webinar recordings and pop that open. And then you can see that there are links out to our YouTube videos of past webinars, and you would just want to watch the new employee mid-career seminar and fast forward the YouTube video until you get to this slide right here. And then I will go into the deeper discussion of purchasing service credit. But we do have to move on from that because we have limited time in this webinar. There was one question up on the board. Do you earn service credit for workers' comp leave? And for 4850, I'm not sure what 4850 is, but for workers' comp leave, that is a little bit like state disability insurance leave, except you're being paid from the state workers' comp system. And often what happens, from what I've been told, is that you will get a partial paycheck from your employer for which you do earn service credit. You will get a partial paycheck at the same time from the workers' comp system from the state, and you do not earn service credit for that partial time. But then that partial time then becomes purchasable. So you can fill out a service credit purchase request if you are interested in learning what the cost of that purchase would be. And then after we calculate it for you, you can decide whether you want to make the purchase. More information about that, again, is at the new employee and mid-career webinar video. You can also find it on our website at acera.org/purchase. One more thing that I do want to talk about regarding service credit before I move on to the salary component of the formula is what happens to your unused sick leave. So if you go straight from active work into retirement, and I'm showing you a calendar here to illustrate what that means. That means that your last day on payroll, also known as your termination date, also known as your resignation date. Your last day on payroll is the day before your first day of retirement. Another way to say that is your termination date and your retirement date are 2 consecutive calendar days. Okay. That means that there's no gap between these dates, and you are spending no time as a deferred member, which a deferred member is somebody who terminates and then doesn't retire yet, has a gap between these dates. You are going straight from active work into retirement. And if you do that, we will convert your unused sick leave into service credit on a 2-to-1 basis. And that basically means you get half of your sick leave as additional service credit in the formula for you, up to a cap. And the cap is in your memorandum of understanding, also known as your MOU. So you're going to have to find out You have to read your MOU and to know what the cap is for you. But we take the sick leave that you have on the books up to the cap that we're allowed to, divide it by 2, and that is how many additional days of service credit that we can add to your service credit number. So for example, many of the MOUs will cap this conversion at 125 days of sick leave. So let's say that you had 130 days of sick leave on the books when you retire, and you go straight from active work into retirement, and you are in one of these bargaining units where your cap is 125 days. Well, what we would do is we would take the 130 and we would get rid of the 5 days that we cannot include because it's over the cap. So then we take the 125 days of sick leave, divide it by 2, and that would give you 62.5 additional days of service credit. And now this is not calendar days, this is work days. So that equals about 12 plus work weeks. That's almost a quarter year. Maybe it's even over a quarter year of additional service credit. This does not change your retirement date. So this doesn't push your retirement date out. All this does is change the number that we put in the formula for you for service credit. It increases it. And because it increases it, it increases your retirement allowance by a little bit. Okay, so then there's a follow-up to the earlier question. Labor Code 4850 provides safety members up to 1 year of full salary when they are injured on the job and placed on temporary disability. I'm sorry, I do not know the answer to that question. That is the first time I'm hearing that question. What I recommend doing is asking my colleagues about that. I'm kind of a generalist. I know how this stuff generally works, and they know a lot of the specifics. So you can either go to acera.org/contact, and I'll type it in here on the Q&A, or you can call 510-628-3000. And we have a member services center, and their entire job is to answer these types of questions. They're there to serve you. They're there during our business hours, which are 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Weekdays, excluding holidays. And you can feel free to go ahead and ask them that question, how that works. And I actually don't have a guess for how that works either, because I'm not sure of the nuts and bolts of that. Okay, so we talked about how we calculate the age factor percentage. We talked about how we calculate the service credit. Let me tell you about how we calculate your highest average monthly salary. This will be a little bit longer discussion. When you go to retire, because we need to calculate this highest average monthly salary, the law tells us that we need to find your period of highest pay during your career. In our pension lingo, that is known as your final compensation period. If you're in tiers 1 or 3, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods. If you're in tiers 2 or 4, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. Essentially, if you're in tiers 1 and 3, your final compensation period is your highest year of consecutive pay. If you're in tiers 2 and 4, it's essentially your highest 3 years of consecutive pay. Now, our goal for the formula is to find your highest average monthly salary, which is actually a pretty simple calculation. We take your total pay for tiers 1 and 3 over that highest 1 year. And to get an average, a monthly average, we simply divide it by 12 months. That gives us your highest average monthly salary. For tiers 2 and 4, we're looking at your total pay for 3 years of consecutive pay. And to get the monthly average, we divide it by 36 months, the number of months over that period. And that gives us your average. And this is the dollar amount we put in the formula for you. Now, some people might ask, what happens if I work less than full time during that time? Does it count against me? It does not count against you. We will figure that out by finding other pay periods. And we will add those on to get you up to the equivalent of 3 years of full-time pay or 1 year of full-time pay, and then we'll do the average. Okay, so don't worry about that. And somebody's asking gross or net, it's gross. Thanks for asking that question. So we're talking about gross pay. Now, what types of gross pay are we including in this? We are including the pay that comes during your final compensation period, that's paid during your final compensation period. We're talking about your base pay, of course. That is going to be included in this calculation. And for some of you, you may have other pay codes. These are sometimes known as footnotes. Some of those may be included, some of those may not be included. There's like 1,000 different pay codes. And so because of that, I have 0 of them memorized, except for overtime. Overtime never counts. So if you want to learn if your pay code counts in this highest average salary calculation, what you should do is go to our website, acera.org/pay codes. There's a PDF there for your employer, and all the pay codes are listed, and it'll say yes or no, whether it's in or out of the equation. Okay, there's 2 more bullet points that I'll cover right now that could be included in the highest average salary calculation. This is vacation sales and vacation cash out. Now, this is just for tier 1 and tier 2 people, not tier 3 and not tier 4. Okay. Vacation sales is where you sell vacation back to your employer while you're still employed. And vacation cash out is where you are cashed out for your vacation that's still on the books and you stop working. And you notice it says up to your limit. Some of this pay can be included. So let me break this down for you. Tier 3 and 4 members, you can take a little snooze. Because the pension reform law that created tier 4 in 2012, that was enacted on January 1st, 2013, disallowed vacation pay from being included in this. And for tier 3, your employer doesn't allow you to sell vacation. And so the way that the law is written, you can't do this either. So that's just how it works. So sorry about that. So for people in tiers 1 and 2 who are curious about this topic, here's how this works. Okay, a vacation sale is where you sell vacation. We're talking about your earned vacation. You're earning vacation. And if you don't take your vacation, you can sell your vacation back to your employer while you're still employed. That's a vacation sale. Another way to get paid for your earned vacation is simply by having it left that you're not going to take, of course, is by simply having this vacation left over on the books when you stop working and or retire. They will pay you for it at that time. That's called a vacation cash out. So you'll get extra money in your final check. I think that's how it works. Now, if you are paid for your earned vacation during your final compensation period, that could possibly be included as pay for the purposes of calculating your salary, for the purposes of calculating your pension. And we're going to be looking at a combination of how much you're paid for selling your vacation and how much you get paid cashing out your vacation. So the total vacation compensation you receive during your final compensation period. Now, let me just before I move on to the next slide, let me take a step back here. Some of you may not be earning your highest pay rate of your career at the end of your career. This occasionally happens. A few of you may have taken a different position. It pays a little bit less. That's totally fine. Just know that the vacation cash out will likely not apply to you unless you are able to cash out so much vacation that you are paid so much during the final compensation period that it would actually change your final compensation period to the end of your career. Otherwise, your final compensation period is going to be sometime earlier in your career where you had higher pay. But for most of you, your rate of highest pay is at the end of your career, and so the vacation cash out could be included, okay? Now, the idea here is that if you are compensated for your earned vacation during your final compensation period, that means that your total salary during that final compensation period is a little bit bigger. If your total salary during the final compensation period is a little bit bigger, that also means that when we average it out, your average salary is a little bit bigger. Now, remember, your average salary is one of the 3 multipliers in the retirement formula. That makes that multiplier go up, which makes your retirement allowance go up. So the bottom line here is that being compensated for your earned vacation rather than taking the vacation will increase your retirement allowance. How much will it increase your retirement allowance? And when I say increase your retirement allowance calculation, it increases it at the time you retire and for the rest of your life. Okay. Now, how much will it increase it? Well, for example, if you're in tier 2 and you are able to be compensated for 6 weeks worth of your earned vacation, either through selling your vacation or cashing out your vacation or a combination of both total, that would increase your retirement allowance by 3.8% immediately at the time of retirement. If you were able to be compensated for 8 weeks worth of your vacation, that would increase your retirement allowance by 5%. So you can see that it has a fairly large impact on increasing your retirement allowance. For tier 1 people, that increase is accelerated because of the short 1-year final compensation period. These are rough, these are approximate increase numbers. So it's not going to be exactly this, but I just want to give you an idea of the impact of being compensated for your vacation on how much it increases your retirement allowance immediately. There's a question up there. Is the highest average monthly salary prior to the month of retirement? So let me just answer that question real fast. Going back, your highest average monthly salary is calculated based on your final compensation period. So if you're in tier 1 and 3, we take an average of your total pay over your highest year of pay. So it's not just the month before your retirement, it would be the 12 months before. Or for tiers 2 and 4, it would be the 36 months before your retirement. Okay. And we look at the average across that period. So that's how that works. Okay. Hang on 1 second. I'll be right back. Just had to turn the fan on in here. Okay, so there is a limit on how much vacation compensation a SARA will include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. There's a cap, and the cap is defined by state law. And you see the word must in here, okay? A SARA must include this. If you are compensated for your earned vacation during that final compensation period and it's at or under the cap as defined by law, then that is your compensation. That is your salary, and we have to include it. And because we have to include it, that's why I'm explaining, that's why I taking the time out to explain how this is all calculated. Some people who are outside of the system might have, might have certain thoughts about that, and it doesn't matter because this is how it's defined by law, and this is what we have to do. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you what the caps are and how much maximum vacation compensation we are allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement, and therefore how much the maximum increase would be to your retirement allowance. Okay. So, let me check the questions real fast. Okay, somebody's asking what the max vacation, whether it's 12 weeks for tier 2, it's going to be individual to you. So I will tell you exactly what the maximum is for you. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Okay, good question to get this out of the way. Does this conversation about vacation compensation include unused paid management leave and floating holidays, and are they paid out upon retirement? This conversation does not include those. Those are use it or lose it. Management leave, floating holidays are comp time, all of those other types of leave. Those are all use it or lose it. You must use those prior to leaving. So I always use those leave balances up first, floating holidays and management time, and to retain my vacation time for doing something like this. And also you can be compensated for your vacation time, whereas you will not be compensated for those when you leave. So those are use it or lose it. Okay, and then the final question I will definitely answer once I talk about the limits. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk to the Alameda Health System employees because you earn vacations in a slightly different way. You earn PTO, which is known as paid time off. And it's kind of like your vacation and sick leave is all in one bucket called PTO. What you're looking at is one piece of that retirement planning worksheet that I showed you earlier. And this is on the second page. And the whole second page is about limits on this vacation compensation. Okay. So what you're going to do if you're an Alameda Health System employee to figure out what the maximum amount of vacation compensation that we can include as salary for calculating your retirement is going to be, you need to know one number. You need to know how much PTO you earn per pay period. And you're going to put that in this field here. In this example, this person earns 6.7692 hours of PTO per pay period. Okay. And I believe that you can find this on your pay stub. I've heard that this number appears on your pay stub. So all you need to do is if you're in tier 1, you multiply this number by 13. If you're in tier 2, you multiply this number by 39. So in this example, a tier 1 person, your limit would be 88 hours of cash vacation compensation that we could include as salary for calculating your retirement. For tier 2, your limit would be 264 hours of vacation compensation that we could include in your salary calculation. So it's a pretty simple math equation here. Now there's one exception. For the people in the UAPD union who work for Alameda Health System, you all have a flat rate. You all have the same limit, and the limit is 120 hours of PTO for tier 1 people and 360 hours of PTO for tier 2 people. So you don't have to do any math. That's just your limit. Okay. That's Alameda Health System. Okay, so now that we have figured out your limit, let's move on to the county and the other employers. So you need to know, and this is another section of that worksheet, you need to know two numbers. You need to know how much vacation you earn per year. It might be 2 weeks, might be 3 weeks, might be 4 weeks, might be 5 weeks. It depends on your seniority. There's a whole schedule for that about how many weeks you earn per year. And you also need to know how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year. And this is not something that I can know. This is something that if you don't know, your payroll clerk usually knows. Your employer has a rule somewhere of the maximum number of weeks that you're allowed to sell per year. So you need to know those two numbers, and you can put those into the worksheet right here. Now, if you are a tier 1 person, you only need to fill in the first column. In this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year, and they're allowed to sell 2 weeks of that 5 if they so choose. So you put that into the worksheet here. Now, if you're in tier 2, you need to fill in all of these columns, and you have a 3-year final compensation period. So we need to fill in how many weeks of vacation you earn at the end of each 1 year of your full 3-year final compensation period. In this case, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation for each one of those years of their 3-year final compensation period. So it's pretty easy for them to fill in. And their employer's rule for how much they could sell did not change over that period. Now, occasionally people will have a change, especially if you go from earning 4 weeks per year to 5 weeks per year, for example. So it might be different across the columns for you if you're in tier 2. So you just fill it in as best you can for what numbers apply to you. Okay, now we have a calculator out on our website that will tell you what your limit is going to be. Let me show you that calculator. So I'm going to go to my browser, and I'm going to type in acera.org/vacation. And that is going to take me right to this bookmark on this page that has these vacation calculators. Okay, so we're in this section here. Understand how unused vacation leave affects your retirement allowance, tiers 1 and 2 only. So I'm going to pop open this little accordion for Alameda County Courts and the Housing Authority. There's a calculator here. Okay, so you pick which tier you're in. If you're in tier 1, you just go ahead and fill it in, and you're filling in how many weeks per year you earn. In this example, is 5 weeks of vacation per year. And then you select from the drop-down how many weeks of vacation you're allowed to sell, and it will tell you what your limit is of vacation compensation that we're allowed to include as salary for calculating your retirement. In this example, it's 2 weeks. Now, if you were in tier 2, it expands to allow you to do that for each one of those 1 year periods in your 3-year final compensation period. So in that example, the person earns 5 weeks per year for each one of those years, and you can see it gives you a running total as you go along. This person's limit is 6 weeks of vacation compensation that we can include as salary for calculating their retirement. Now, it's actually a very simple calculator. All it's doing is it's looking at each 1 year period, and it's taking the lesser of the 2 numbers and it's just adding them up. So you can see in all 3 cases, the lesser of 5 or 2 is 2. So it's basically adding 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So you don't actually need to use the calculator if you know how it works. But if you just want to be sure, you can go out and use the calculator. So going back to the presentation. Now we know from the calculator, oh, there's a screenshot. Now we know from the calculator that this person's limit is 6. So we put that in this field here. Okay, now they have some options. If they want to maximize their retirement, if they want to get compensated for all 6 weeks worth of this vacation in order to get the maximum increase to their retirement allowance, they can do that through a combination of selling vacation and cashing out vacation. Okay, and so they can decide that. Now, one way to do it is to simply do it all on the cash out. Just have 6 weeks of vacation on the books when you retire and don't worry about selling any. So this person sold 0 weeks while they were still employed. They just simply had 6 weeks of vacation on the books when they stopped working. 0 plus 6 is 6. And so they have been compensated for exactly the amount of vacation up to their limit. And we will include 6 weeks worth of that vacation compensation when we calculate their retirement. And that will give them a boost to their retirement allowance. Now, let me do a slightly different example, because some of you might fall into this boat where you might actually have to sell some vacation if you're trying to maximize this. In this example, this person is earning 4 weeks of vacation per year, and it's another tier 2 example. Tier 1 is easy. In most cases, you don't even need to sell any vacation. You just cash out your limit and you're golden. For tier 2, because it's a 3-year period, it gets a little more complicated. So let me just continue doing this tier 2 example. This person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year, and they did so in each one of the 1-year periods of their 3-year final compensation period, which again is their period of highest pay, their 3 highest years of pay in their career. And it's not calendar years, remember, it's not fiscal years, it is 3 years worth of their pay periods. If they're being paid their highest rate of pay at the end of their career, really what this final compensation period is going to be is starting with their retirement date. It's going to go 3 years into the past worth of pay periods, and that will become their final compensation period. Okay, so just a little side note there. They were also allowed to, if they wanted to, sell 3 weeks worth of their earned vacation per year as per their employer's rules. Okay, now, just to fast forward, if we go out to the calculator, we will find that their limit of vacation pay that we're allowed to include as salary for calculating their retirement is 9 weeks. And that is because it's the lesser of each one of these numbers added up. So 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. Now, your employer has this extra rule that they will impose upon you. And their rule is that when you terminate your employment, they will not cash you out for more than 2 times your accrual rate of what you are earning. And I'm not talking to Alameda Health System people, I'm talking to everyone else, okay? They will cash you out for a maximum of 2 times your accrual rate. So in this example, this person earns 4 weeks of vacation per year. If they had 4 times 2 is 8, okay, that's 2 times their accrual rate. If they had more than 8 weeks of vacation on the books when they stopped working, they would lose that additional week. Okay, so now you can probably kind of see what the problem is here. They can only be cashed out for 8 weeks, and they could, their limit for how much cash vacation compensation we could include is 9. They can't get up to the 9 simply by cashing out. But it's not really a problem because they have the option to sell vacation. So you could simply just sell 1 week of vacation while you're still employed, have 8 weeks on the books when you stop working, and that would get you up to the 9 that is your limit. Okay. So it's actually a pretty simple solution. Some people will ask, well, what if I already sold a bunch of vacation? What do I do? That's totally fine. If you're somebody who tends to sell vacation for whatever reason, totally fine. Okay, don't worry. You have some options. Let's stick with this same example of a person who has a 9-week limit. Let's say that you sold 5 weeks already during that 3-year final compensation period. Okay. Now, option number 1 would be to cash out the difference. You simply cash out 4 weeks because 5 plus 4 is 9. That gets you up to the 9. Okay. Option number 2 is you could cash out more. Like maybe you had more than 4 on the books. Maybe you had up to 8 weeks on the books. Totally fine also. What's going to happen is back when you sold the vacation, you got a check or checks, multiple checks, because you actually were only allowed to sell 3 per year in this example. That money went into your bank account for that vacation that you sold. Okay, then at the time that you stopped working, you cashed out 8. That money also goes into your bank account. So you keep all that money. Now, we see all this happen in your payroll records. We see that you sold the 5. We see that you cashed out the 8 because all your payroll records are in our database so that we can do these calculations, our pension software. But we must limit how much vacation compensation we're allowed to include as salary to the 9 that is your limit. Okay, so we will take 9 weeks worth of this 13 weeks of pay, and we will include 9, the numbers, like just the math part of it, in the salary when we do the math for your salary. So don't get confused. You're not paying us 9 weeks worth of vacation compensation and we're keeping the money. No, you keep all the money for the 13 weeks worth of vacation that you sold. It's just that 9 weeks worth of the pay in terms of numbers, that is used to calculate your salary for calculating your retirement allowance. Okay, so what questions do you all have about this? Because I think that's my last slide on this. I'm going to go ahead and answer this question that's up on the board, because people are always curious about this. So I'm not surprised that you're curious about this. The question is, would you please compare the effect of 2 weeks worth of vacation sell versus 2 weeks worth of vacation cash out? There's not a big difference. If you're in tier 2, there could be a difference. I mean, you're correct. There could be a difference between how much you got paid for the 2 weeks, especially if you sold it toward the beginning of that 3-year period. Maybe your salary was slightly lower and you got paid a little bit less for it versus getting cashed out for 2 weeks. Your salary is probably a little bit higher at the end when you stop working because of cost of living increases and possibly raises. So yeah, maybe you earned a few more dollars for that vacation cash out. What I have found whenever I've sat down to do the math on this is that the effect of it on your salary is kind of peanuts. It's not a huge effect. So I wouldn't stress out over selling versus cashing out. I happen to think because cashing out, you do happen to get the most dollars in most cases, and it's the easiest, that it's better just to cash out, especially if you're in, going back to the first example, this situation, this person, 2 times their accrual rate is 10. So they could have up to 10 weeks of vacation on the books. So they only need to have 6 on the books to get up to their limit. They don't have to sell any. And I think it's just, less stress if you don't worry about selling and you just cash it out. But if you are one of those people who needs to sell to get up to the limit, that's totally fine too. And what you could just aim for having, your max on the books when you stop working, and make sure to do the math right so that you're not over, so you don't lose any vacation. Maybe it's, may want to be slightly under, but however you want to do it. But yeah, in this case, this is probably ideal to just sell, whatever you can't make up in cashing out. Okay, next question. Can you confirm that management tier 2 general can sell up to 3 weeks? In my experience, usually it is managers that have that higher amount that they can sell 3 weeks, but I can't tell you specifically what your employer's rule is. So usually it's your payroll clerk that knows those exact numbers, and you can go ask them. And then one more, before I forget, one more question that I want to address that nobody's asked yet, but I do want to, people tend to ask and wonder about is, people say, okay, well, there's this whole concept of cashing out vacation and getting this boost to my salary, the salary component of the formula. But what happens if I just took the vacation? Like I have this, if I just took the 9 weeks of vacation at the end of my career. So yes, that would increase your retirement allowance. Your service credit would go up by 9 weeks, where your salary part, you're not getting the bonus 9 weeks. So your salary would just be calculated as normal. So you would get more service credit, but the boost to your retirement allowance is not even close to what you would get by doing this cash out thing. Because what's happening here is you are getting 9 extra weeks of pay, but we are not, it's like 9 bonus weeks, but we're not extending out the time, the pay periods, when we're doing the average. So we're still looking at the total pay over the 3 years or the 1 year. So it's like this bonus pay, and we're doing the average the same. And it's sort of hard to explain, but the increase that you get from doing the vacation sell and vacation cash out, the vacation compensation, is much higher than you would if you had actually taken the vacation and gotten the service credit for it and not the bonus salary credit for it. Okay. One more thing that I'll mention is that people will get to this point and they'll say, well, I got to save up all this vacation, which means I can't take a vacation. And that's, I don't like that. So if you recall, one thing to note is that you can, in some of our employers will allow you to purchase extra vacation. And when you go out on a purchased vacation, that doesn't count for anything. So one thing that some people do is you purchase extra vacation, you take the purchased vacation, and then you save your earned vacation so that you're compensated for it. So that's one way to do that. There's a question up on the board. I have several hours of banked in lieu pay and would like to add this amount to my retirement dollars. Is there a limit for this? Several hours in lieu. I'm not familiar with in lieu. That sounds like one of those use it or lose it categories. Maybe some of the rest of you could chime in and tell me more about that, but that, if I'm guessing correctly, that is not considered vacation. And for this calculation, we are only talking about vacation pay. Okay, we're not talking about any other types of earned leave. Okay, so in lieu is when you work a holiday and don't receive extra time and a half. That might be one of those questions for our staff. So let me put in the contact information again, and you can ask my colleagues that. So I apologize, I don't know the answer to that. If I took a wild guess though, my guess would be that's use it or lose it. And then what you would want to do is you use the in lieu time to take time off and save the vacation to be able to get compensated for that. That's my wild guess on that. Okay, next question. Is the 6 weeks max in the example for the total within the last 3 years of the retiree's working years? Is the 6 weeks max example for the total within the last 3 years of the retiree's working years? Well, I was saying earlier that in most cases, people's final compensation period is at the end of their career. So this whole thing is assuming that. These examples are assuming that. This is somebody whose highest rate of pay is at the end of their career. And in this example, we're assuming that they're in tier 2. This is a tier 2 example, okay? So we're looking at their last 3 years, of pay, of consecutive pay, all the way up to their retirement date. And so, yes, in this example, this person is earning 5 weeks of vacation each one of those years. They could sell 2 weeks worth if they wanted to. In this example, they don't. And so they earned 15 weeks total during that 3 years. They had 6 left over on the books. So they probably took 9 weeks of that as an actual vacation sometime during that 3 years. But they saved 6 to get to have their limit, exactly their limit on the books when they stopped working. And that way we could include 6 weeks worth of that vacation pay as salary for calculating their salary. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I answered your question. Okay, next question. Can you confirm that comp time does not add to the final compensation, but you can cash it out at the time of retirement? So when you use comp time, like comp time is one of your is a type of leave balance. Okay. When you use comp time and you mark that on your timesheet, you get service credit for that and you get salary credit for that. Like that's part of your, what happens during that pay period. But you're going to want to use up that comp time before you retire, because what I've been told is that if you have comp time on the books when you stop working, it just disappears. You don't get anything for it. Like they don't give you cash for it. And if you don't get cash for it, it can't count as salary for calculating your salary. So the time to use that would be while you're still working. That's how I understand it. Okay, great. So yeah, let me know if you have a follow-up to that. Okay, no more questions on the board. I'll just pause a minute to see if there's maybe one last question on this topic. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Tier 3 and 4 members, welcome back. Thanks for bearing with us through that discussion. Okay. Okay, let me tell you about some limits on your monthly retirement allowance. The first one is that you cannot receive a retirement allowance that is higher than your highest average monthly salary. Essentially, this is trying to make it so that you're not making more in retirement than you were making as a working employee. And which is mostly true, but as we just learned, your highest average monthly salary can be slightly higher, based on that vacation compensation, and that would be the limit. So it's capped at 100% of your highest average monthly salary. Most people do not get to that limit. And if you do get to that limit, you're doing really good. You got to work here a long time to get to that limit. Okay, so the next two are limits for people who have really high salaries. I'm not going to go into detail about those. I just want you to be cognizant that those are there. And if you want to explore those further, we do have a web page, acera.org/limits, that has more details about those. The last one that I'll talk about is for the tier 4 members. Your salary, total annual salary that we're allowed to use for the purposes of calculating your pension, has a annual cap to it that is written into the law that created tier 4. So for 2023, the annual cap is $146,042. Sorry, I've been talking for a while. For general members, and $175,250 for safety members. So when you get to that cap, if you do have one of those high salaries and you earn more than that in the year, we do stop taking employee contributions out of your check for the rest of the year. And then when it goes time to calculate your retirement, we can't use more annual salary than that when we're calculating your retirement. Okay, so at this point, we're actually going to do the retirement estimate now that I've told you all of the stuff in the lead up to it, how we calculate it. So I'm going to show you two ways to get an estimate of your retirement. I'm going to show you this quick ballpark way to it gives you kind of like a mental image of what your retirement is going to be, and it shows you what percentage salary, salary replacement you're achieving with your retirement allowance. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a section of that retirement planning worksheet. And this first section is called Getting a Ballpark Estimate. So you just put in your retirement scenario here, what age you think that you're going to retire at, how many years of service credit you will have earned should you retire at that age. And then you're going to go use one of these charts that we have. If you go to acera.org/ballpark, that's a shortcut to get to it. I can show you how to navigate to it. You go to our website, you go under members, you go down to planning your future retirement income, which is the third selection down. Open up the accordion for option number 1. And you will find buttons here for these income replacement charts. Now you find your tier and you click on the button for your tier. I'm going to click tier 2A. And in the example I was giving you, well, first let me wait for the chart to open. Okay, so this is a ballpark percentage salary replacement chart. But what that means is that we've taken the age factor percentages and we've already multiplied them by the years of service credit for you, so that all you need to do is know what age you're going to retire at and how many years of service credit, and you can see what level of salary replacement you are achieving. And in the example I was giving, the person was retiring at age 58 with 29 years of service credit. So you can see age at retirement is across the top, years of service credit is down the side, and you just find where they intersect. And these intersect at 50.03%. So this person's retirement allowance is going to be 50% of their salary. They are replacing 50% of their salary with their pension. That's why it's called a salary replacement chart. And then while you're on the chart, you can see, if you want to, what happens if you go diagonally down, if you work another year, which means you're going to get another year older and you're going to earn another year of service credit. That would actually make your salary replacement go up to 54.5%. What happens if I work another year? 59.42%. So just by working 2 more years, I go from 50% salary replacement all the way up to almost 60% salary replacement. So that is one feature of this chart that I find pretty interesting. But sticking with that example, in this example, this person, they're going to retire at 58 with 29 years of service credit, and they're decided. So going back to the worksheet in the presentation, You can put that percentage here that you got from the chart. And then what you can do just for the ballpark estimate is if you're making your highest rate of salary now, you can just kind of think of how much money you make per month now. And that will give you a very close estimate to how much you can expect in retirement. So if this person's average monthly salary is $6,000 and their retirement allowance is going to be half of that, that means their ballpark estimate is going to be about $3,000. Okay, so that's just kind of like a quick way to do it by looking at the chart. Now, okay, this PowerPoint might freeze. Okay, great, it did not. Okay, so I say that's a quick way to do it, but actually, if you log into your account on our website, you'll find that getting a precision estimate with the online benefit estimator does not take that long at all. It takes maybe like 5 minutes. And you don't have to do any math, it just does it all for you. Okay. So what you're seeing here is another section on that worksheet on the first page about getting a precision estimate. So what you're going to think of is your retirement scenario and 2 dates, a separation date and a projected retirement date. And a separation date is your last day on payroll. Your projected retirement date is your first day of retirement. And if you're going straight into from active work into retirement, this would just be 2 consecutive days. Now you go out to our website, click the login button, and you log in. So I'm not going to show you that process just to keep things expedient. And you click on Estimate a Benefit. This is the benefit estimation tool. And what I'm showing you is screenshots here. Then you're going to put in those dates, your last day on payroll and your first day of retirement. And then you hit Calculate. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can see it a little bit better. And so you hit Calculate. And what it will do, excuse me, what it will do is give you a projection of how much service credit you will have earned in this retirement scenario that you're getting an estimate for. It will also give you a salary projection using, if you're at your current highest salary, it will be using your current highest salary. If your salary was higher at some point in the past, then it will use that. And it's doing some math to make the salary projection. Now, if your retirement is a ways away, maybe like a few years away, you might find that your actual retirement allowance will be higher because your salary will be higher. If you wanted to, you can override both the service credit number and the salary number if you want to see the effect of different scenarios where you maybe like you're thinking of making a service credit purchase. You can add that purchased amount to this projected service credit and put it in the override field, and it'll use the overrided service credit to do the estimate. Or you could put an increased salary here if you know like you're going to get a raise or something. I suggest if you want a nice conservative estimate, you don't override them and you just run it how it is. And that way you don't have any opportunity to overestimate and then be disappointed later. You can put in beneficiary information here, click Get Estimate, and what you end up with is this PDF retirement benefit estimate. So you can do as many of these as you want. This system is available 24/7. I think except there's like an hour on Sunday in the middle of the night where they do updates to it, but otherwise it's always available. So one thing that additional that I can tell you, one other way that I can help you with this benefit estimator that people have questions about this is, what about if I want to understand how much the vacation compensation is going to increase my retirement allowance? Can I do that here? And the answer is yes. You can do it by using this field here, add hours of cash vacation compensation. Let me help you do that without overestimating. And one of the main reasons that you might overestimate is if you've already sold vacation during what this software is using to do the salary projection, because it will use some of your past pay periods if it falls into the final compensation period that it's going to use. Those hours would already be included in the salary. And then if you're putting your full limit of hours in here, you would be overestimating and then you'll end up disappointed. So let me help you do it without that happening. Okay. So there's this section on your worksheet. It's entitled How to Calculate hours of cash vacation compensation for the online benefit estimator. Okay. What you're going to do is you're going to run, step one is run an estimate and leave the hours of cash vacation compensation field blank. Okay. And so in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer a number from the other part of the worksheet here. I'm going to take my limit from the calculator that I showed you on our website. It's actually much easier if I just show you the full worksheet. I should just put a graphic of the full worksheet on here. Okay. So here's the worksheet, right? Here's this page 2 of the worksheet, and here's where you found your limit for the county and other employees. So you take this number here, your limit from the calculator, you just transfer it over here. Okay. For the AHS people, your limit is already in hours, and so you just take your limit and you transfer it down here to the limit in hours. Okay, that's where you start. For the county and the other employees who are not AHS, what you need to do is convert your limit in weeks to hours. So you need to put in your weekly work hours and multiply them together. This person is allowed to include 6 hours of cash vacation compensation in his salary. He or she works 40 hours a week. Those multiplied together equals them earning their limit is 240 hours of cash vacation compensation we're allowed to include. Okay, now you run that estimate number 1, and what you're going to look at is these back pages here. Okay, look at the column that says sold vacation hours, because this retirement benefit estimate has this after the first page, it has more pages where it shows you which date ranges, which pay periods, and what salary it's including for the purposes of making this projection for you. And you're going to look at the sold vacation hours column, and you're going to see if it's including any sold vacation hours. If so, you put those in here. So let's say that going back here, I sold 40 hours worth of vacation in one of these pay periods. Well, that would show up here. And so I would go ahead and put that here. And then you're going to subtract that out from your limit, because that's already included in the salary projection. Okay, then you take the 200 and you go back to the estimator, and you can put up to 200 hours of cash vacation compensation in here. And that's how you do it without overestimating, by subtracting out what's already being included in the salary projection. Okay. If you don't sell vacation, you could just put your full limit in here. In that example, it was 240. You could put 240. Or if you're somebody who knows you're not going to get up to your limit, like, maybe you're only going to sell 2 weeks worth because that's all you have. That's fine. You just put 80 in here, and then you could see what, 80 hours. Or if you work 37.5 hours per week, then you would put 75 hours in here. So whatever it is for you. Okay, so for our purposes in this moment, we're just going to we're looking at the this top number right here, the unmodified option. But you can look at all of these numbers here. This on this PDF estimate, okay, this retirement benefit estimate, zooming in, this column right here is your estimated retirement allowance that you will receive every month for the rest of your life, should you choose each one of these options. Now, I'm going to talk about the options maybe in like a few minutes, maybe in like 20 minutes after I do some more topics. So we're not going to talk about that right now, but I will tell you about each one of the options. For right now, if you want to, you can take this unmodified option number and put it into the worksheet as your precision estimate, as the result of getting the precision estimate. Or another option is just to take this PDF, print it out, and staple it to the worksheet. Or if you're doing it all digitally, you could just save this PDF in the same folder as you're saving the worksheet if you're doing it digitally. Okay, so those are just some options for keeping track of what you learned in this webinar. One more thing that I'd like to mention is that I just showed you how to use our precision benefit estimator on our website. You do have the option of us doing it for you. We'll run those calculations for you and we'll send you an estimate in the mail. We get a lot of those requests. You do it by submitting this form, retirement estimate request form. We get a lot of those requests. So there's a queue. So it could take some time to get those back. And also we're using the US mail to send those for security purposes. So there's some lag time in there. Whereas if you go out onto our website and you do the benefit estimator, you can have a benefit estimate in like 5 minutes, and it uses the same software. And so it's going to get the same result as if we do it for you. So that's just my little pitch for using the estimator and not doing the benefit estimate that we'll send you. There's a question. If I'm participating in Share the Savings, do I assume I should lower my monthly gross by 500? If you're asking for the purposes of doing the benefit estimator, I would not do that, because Share the Savings probably has a certain pay code associated with it. And the way that your employer's software and our software is set up is every pay code is labeled electronically with whether it counts for the salary calculation or not. And my guess would be Share the Savings does not count. And if that is the case, it's already labeled like that in the system, and the system is already not taking that into account. So whatever this benefit estimator is using for the salary projection, it's doing the math in the same way that we're going to do it when we go to calculate your final retirement. So you don't have to think about, what pay codes are in or out for doing the benefit estimator. That's already taken care of. You're welcome. Next question. I have general and safety service time. Do I do 2 estimates, or does the system estimate both service credits? Okay. Excellent question. That is very pertinent. You don't have to worry about doing 2 estimates, because it does it all for you. It's going to take all that into account for you. I was saying in the beginning of the presentation, our software is going to do 2 calculations for you. Well, this is already doing both of those. And when you end up with this retirement benefit estimate, it's already done that for you, and it's already added the dollar amounts together, and it's showing you how much we're estimated to send you in the check that we're going to send you. So yeah, again, yet another way that the estimator makes it easy for you, and you don't have to do too much thinking. Okay, let me help you verify your retirement eligibility. We're talking about this milestone on the pensions milestone chart. This is your first day that you could retire if you want to, as long as you have achieved one of these combinations of age and years of service credit that gets you to retirement eligibility. This first slide is for tiers 1, 2, and 3. The next slide will be for tier 4. Okay. So you have 3 options if you're in tiers 1, 2, and 3 for becoming eligible to retire. Option number 1 is that you're at least age 50. You have at least 5 years of service credit, and you have at least 10 years of membership, which means it's been at least 10 years since your ACERA entry date, and you can retire. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is that if you are a general member and you have 30 years of service credit, or if you're a safety member and you have 20 years of service credit, you can retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Option number 3 is that you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years that you need for option number 1. So those are the 3 combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. For tier 4, you have 2 combinations. Option number 1 is that you are at least age 52 as a general member, or at least age 50 as a safety member, and you can retire as long as you have at least 5 years of service credit. Or option number 2 is that you can retire at age 70 with any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years you need for option number 1. Okay. And that's how you achieve retirement eligibility. If you want to, you could write your retirement eligibility date in the worksheet, purely optional. If you happen to already know you're by far eligible, you don't even have to worry about that. Okay, let me help you choose your retirement date. We're talking about this day right here on the pension milestone chart. There are 6 things that you're going to want to think about. We'll go through each one of these. Okay. So number one, will you have enough income to retire? And the best way to do this is to get that Acera retirement estimate. Also, if you've paid into the Social Security system for at least 10 years over your lifetime, and not 10 consecutive years, but just the equivalent of 10 years, you will get to collect Social Security. So it's a good idea to go out to their website and do their estimator. They have a kind of similar system that we do, where you can get you can generate your own estimates. It's also good if you have a deferred compensation account to go ahead and log into your account there and get a sense of how much money you have in there, and also talk to the deferred compensation program about taking disbursements from that account in retirement and how much you might want to take in order to pay for your life. Gene Hilliard is going to talk all about that at 12:15. But you can always make appointments with the deferred compensation people and talk to them one-on-one for that. Okay. So that kind of constitutes your retirement income, your Acera pension and any other pensions you have, money that you have in deferred comp or other investments, and Social Security. And so you kind of, want to add all that up and just, kind of be cognizant of how much of your life that's going to pay for in retirement. You could think about your post-retirement expenses and compare your post-retirement income to expenses if you want. Or a shorthand way to do it is that financial planners will say that in retirement, you need 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income in order to maintain your standard of living. So that means that whatever your salary was prior to retirement, your retirement income should be 70 to 80% of that in order to maintain your standard of living. This is, an optional thing. We don't really, we don't have like accountants that sit down with you and do this stuff. We do have a expanded article out on our website that walks you through this process. If you go out to our homepage, you can get to this one of two ways. You go under members and you go preparing to retire, where you scroll down to this berry colored section, and there's prepare to retire right there. It goes to the same place. And there is a article here, estimate your retirement income. And it takes you through a step-by-step process. It helps you get the estimates. It helps you log into your account at Deferred Comp. There's even a retirement calculator and a budget worksheet. It's all kind of extra credit. I mean, you can delve as deep into that as you want. If you're ready to go, you're ready to go. And you're, we're not going to stop you from retiring. So you tell us when you're ready to retire. Acera does provide one-on-one sessions with members regarding getting you ready for that final, getting all the paperwork in for retirement. And that's within the 3 months before your retirement date. And I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Okay. When I talk about the retirement process. The second thing that you may want to be cognizant of when choosing your retirement date are those age factor percentage dates. So I showed you a chart earlier about how we calculate the age factor percentages. And I said that they go up the older you are, and it's based on quarter years. And I gave the example of January 15th birthday. 1 quarter after your birthday is April 15th. 1 quarter after your birthday is July 15th. 1 quarter is October 15th. Okay. So let's say that you're somebody who has not yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. You're going to retire younger than that. That means that as you're passing these days, you're getting a quarter year older, and you are going up one notch in the age factor chart as you pass these days and getting a slightly higher and higher age factor percentage. Let's say that your birthday is January 15th and you're thinking about retiring on July 14th. Well, you can see that you wouldn't want to do that. You would want to wait 1 day and retire on July 15th. That way, you would pass that cutoff date for the next higher age factor percentage. And the same is true with all of those. The increase to your retirement allowance by just waiting that one day would be somewhere between 1 and 2% just by not retiring right before one of these age factor percentage cutoff dates. Okay. Now, what I'm not saying is that you need to retire right after one of these. I'm not saying that, like, if you're ready to go, you need to work another month or weeks or whatever to get past one of these days. All I'm trying to prevent you from doing is retiring right before one of these dates, when one of these dates is coming up. Okay. If you're going to retire like midway between one of these two dates, that's fine. You don't have to wait another 6 weeks or 6 or 7 weeks till you get past the next date. Don't sweat it. Just don't retire right before one of these dates if your age factor percentage would go up if you retire on the next date. And here's the age factor chart again, just to illustrate that. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to mention, the next number 3 thing that you may want to think about when choosing your retirement date is the cost of living adjustment date. And because I'll talk about that, I'll just tell you about how the cost of living adjustment works at this point. The cost of living adjustment, also known as the COLA, is an annual percentage increase to your retirement allowance. And the percentage changes year to year, and it's based on inflation in the Bay Area as measured by the Consumer Price Index, which is a measure of inflation. Whatever percentage that goes up from December to December, that becomes the COLA percentage that we're looking at. So if prices go up 5% from December to December in the Bay Area, then we're looking at a 5% cost of living adjustment. And the cost of living adjustment is posted for everyone who's in retired status on April 1st. So if this is your first year, whenever you retire, when April 1st comes, you get the cost of living adjustment for that year. Okay. If you retire on April 1st, you get that year's cost of living adjustment. Now, there is a maximum to how much cost of living adjustment we can give you each year. For tiers 1 and 3, it's 3%. For tiers 2 and 4, it's 2%. Okay. So in that example I was using where inflation goes up 5%, you can't actually get all the 5% in that year. But what we will do, because that's the way the law is written, but what we will do is we will save those additional percentage points in your COLA bank for you for future years in case the inflation is less the next year. So if next year came around and it was only 1% inflation in the Bay Area, then we would take percentage points out of your COLA bank to add to that 1% to get you up to your maximum annual limit. This all happens automatically. You don't really have to think about it. The bottom line here is that if you've already been retired for a few years, you tend to get the maximum cost of living increase each year because you tend to bank percentage points over the years because inflation tends to be a little bit higher than 3% in the United States. Okay, so one more thing I'll mention is that if your first day of retirement is on April 2nd, you missed the cost of living increase for that year. But next year, when April 1st comes around, you'll get whatever next year's cost of living increase will be, and you'll get it every year after that when April 1st comes around. Sometimes there is a conflict between when people are ready to retire in the spring, they're going to retire in the spring. There's a conflict between the age factor percentage increase and the COLA increase, or so it looks. So in this example, this person's birthday is January 15th, just sticking with that example all the way through. And they're a general member, they're age 54, which means their age factor percentages are still increasing with every quarter year. And they're going to retire in the spring. And they're wondering, what do I do? Should I retire on April 15th or April 1st? If I retire on April 15th, I'm going to get the age factor increase because that's the next quarter year date after my January 15th birthday. But I'm going to miss the cost of living adjustment I would have gotten had I retired on or before April 1st. Or should I retire on April 1st and I'm going to miss the age factor percentage increase that I would have gotten had I waited 2 weeks and retired on April 15th, but I would get the cost of living adjustment for that year. And both of these increases will happen, upon retirement immediately. So what do I do? Well, you probably already know the answer to this because I already gave you the percentages. But if the COLA is the maximum for that year, and we will tell you that every year at the first week of February is when it gets calculated, we know what it's going to be. We'll post it out on our website. Then you would probably go with the cost of living increase, because the cost of living increase would give you an immediate 2% or 3% increase, depending on your tier, versus the 1 to 1.9% increase that the age factor percentage would give you. You can run these numbers by yourself by running multiple benefit estimates for different dates. You could run one on our website for April 15th, and it would automatically calculate the age factor increase for you. Then you run a second one for April 1st. It would not calculate the COLA in there. So you would then have to take that and multiply it, increase it by, the COLA percentage. And then you could compare the two yourself. That's kind of an easy way to do it. One more thing I want to mention about the COLA. A lot of people retire in March. It's our biggest retirement month because people are already going to retire in the spring, and they're thinking, well, it doesn't make sense for me to retire like in April, April 2nd and after, because I'll probably make less money than I would have had I retired on April 1st or in March. And that's usually true. So April is our slowest retirement month for that reason. But there's nothing like magic about April 1st. Like if you're going to retire in February or January or December or November or October or August, totally fine. You just retire when you need to retire. And then when April 1st comes around, you'll get the cost of living increase for that year. Okay. So if you retired in November, it wouldn't be immediate. You would get it when April 1st comes around. And about the age factor percentages, if you are already older than you have already reached the maximum age factor percentage, you don't even have to think about those. Okay. Next thing you might want to think about when choosing your retirement date. Okay, this is going back to that idea that we're going to do the sick leave conversion for you. You're going to get a bump in your service credit. And that happens automatically as long as you go straight into retirement from active status. So again, you're seeing this graphic again. Your last day of work or active employment, this is also known as your termination date or your date of resignation, should be the day before your retirement date. Okay, so this day, and it doesn't have to be Friday, it could be any one of these days. This day is the day that you write on your letter of resignation to your employer. And when you go through the retirement process and you're on our retirement page, we have a letter of resignation that you can use. And you just fill in that date. Okay, then the retirement date, this is the day that you write on your retirement application. If these are two consecutive dates, then that means you're going straight into retirement, and we will do the sick leave conversion for you. Okay. On a related topic, number 6 is that you want to retire on a day after you're scheduled to work. And again, this is in that same concept where you're trying to avoid becoming a deferred member for any days and losing your sick leave. Because if there's any gap between these two dates, you just lose all your sick leave. It just disappears. You don't get service credit for it. And it's not that difficult to make sure that this happens, that you go straight into retirement. It's just, we need to tell you how it works. So you will want to retire on a day where you are scheduled to work on the day before, which should not be a holiday, which should be a non-holiday. Okay. So to make it easy, the day that you were scheduled to work, that should be a non-holiday. And the first day of retirement, I think, should be a non-holiday, although I don't think that matters. Okay. But you should be on the schedule to work on that day before, and it should be a non-holiday. And it's okay if you're on leave that day. So for example, if you work Monday through Friday, your first day of retirement should be Tuesday through Saturday, one of those days. You should not retire on Sunday or Monday because you do not normally work on Saturday or Sunday. So going back to the calendar, this person, they work Monday through Friday. Okay, you could retire on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. That's fine. You cannot retire. You don't want to retire on Sunday or Monday. Now, some of you, especially if you work in healthcare or law enforcement, you might not have a regular schedule like this. So what I suggest that you do is maybe you don't pick a retirement date at this point. You pick like a retirement week. Or if you're filling out your retirement application, 3 months early, you could pick a retirement date, but you could revise it later. So just be cognizant that you might want to revise it later. When the schedule comes out and you see when you're actually scheduled to work, you just want to make sure your retirement date is a day after you were supposed to be on the schedule. Now that we know, okay, there's a question here. Okay, so question is, how many days do you receive for your sick time when you retire? You're an AHS employee. Okay, so let's see here. I can't remember that off the top of my head. Earning and purchasing service credit. Okay, so AHS members, you get PTO rather than sick leave. So your PTO is going to get cashed out. Like you're going to get cash for that. You're not going to get service credit for that. Okay. But there are some other types of sick leave that you may have, like extended sick leave or intermittent sick leave that was phased out. That will be converted for you on a 2-to-1 basis. But otherwise you wouldn't have sick leave to convert. Yeah. So that will be converted for you. But otherwise you'll just get cashed out for your PTO. Okay, on your worksheet, on the original My Career Timeline section, if you want to, if you changed your mind about what your projected retirement date is, you could fill that in here. And then now that you know, if you're trying to go straight from active work into retirement, those should be 2 consecutive days. You can just subtract 1 day and that's your separation date. Or vice versa. You could take your separation date and then add 1 day as your projected retirement date. Now, some of you aren't going to do that. You're going to stop working and you're going to defer your retirement to a later date. I recommend going out to our website and reading our page on becoming a deferred member or being a deferred member and retiring out of deferred status. And it's at acera.org/defer, which is spelled DEFER, acera.org/defer. And there's some information for you there about retiring out of deferred status. Okay, so let me tell you about the retirement application process. And I'll do it step by step. Our first step is we want you to go through our preparing to retire section, which is actually another step-by-step process in itself. So I already showed you this. You go under members, go down to preparing to retire, or go down to ready to retire and go to prepare to retire. This section, it's in chronological order and it has various things we want you to do and learn before you retire. Now, some of these things you've already done. You've verified your retirement eligibility. We already did that. Check. You already understand how vacation pay affects your pension. We went through that. Check. If you've already done an estimate of your retirement income, you can check that off. Attend a pre-retirement seminar. You're doing that as we speak. So check. But there's some other things in there that we do want you to go through. The last two items are going to be 2 more steps on this process. So let me go back to the list here. So you go through the preparing to retire section. Step number 2 is that we would love for you to set up a ready to retire counseling session with us. There's a form that you submit. You can go to acera.org/counseling. You can just type that into your browser, or that is the second to last step on this preparing to retire page. And you can just click on that. You just fill out the form, hit submit, and we will process that, and then we will contact you, and we will schedule a ready to retire counseling session with you for the 3-month period before your retirement date that you've chosen. So we want you to schedule this ready to retire counseling session with 3 to 6 months before your retirement date. And then within the 0 to 3 months before your retirement date is when the counseling session will actually happen. Step number 3, within this 90 days before your retirement date, you can submit your retirement application, and you should submit your retirement application because that's how you retire. There are more detailed instructions about submitting your retirement application at acera.org/retire. Some of those instructions are going to look very similar to very familiar because it's a lot of the stuff that we've covered in this webinar, but it's good to get a refresher on that stuff while you're filling out your application. So going back to the preparing to retire page, the last step is the applying to retire page, which is at acera.org/retire. And so it takes you through some final steps, including choosing your retirement option, which I'll talk about shortly. And then it has your completing your retirement packet. And this is actually where you fill out your retirement application in DocuSign. So you press the button and your retirement application will pop right open. On your retirement application, one of the main things that you're doing is choosing one of the 5 retirement options. The other main thing that you're doing is you're choosing your retirement date and you're writing that down. So you hit submit on that. That comes to us. We process it. We take note of your retirement date. Once that retirement date passes, you're retired. It's going to be amazing. You've earned it. It's going to be so awesome. So I'm just really excited for you. You get to finally retire. It's going to be so cool. So once that retirement date passes, you're retired. That's how that works. Now that you know when to submit the counseling form, all you do is you take your projected retirement date, subtract 6 months. You can go ahead and write that in on your worksheet if you so choose. You can expect your first retirement check within the first 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer's paycheck. It does take a little time to do all the final calculations for your retirement check. But in 99.9% of the cases these days, your first retirement check will be your final calculation of your 100% retirement. Occasionally these days, there could be a major issue with your file, like there's missing documentation or there's a divorce order pending, and then you will receive 80% payments, like estimated 80% payments until we resolve the issues. Then we'll get you up to your 100% payments and issue you any retro payments for any of the payments that we had to make that were less than 100%. Okay, that's a lot of stuff to get to this point. That's how you actually retire. Now, like I was saying, on your retirement application, oh, there's a question. Does the retirement check come after the first month is completed? So I think what happens is, there's a 2-week lag when you get your last employer paycheck usually. So, I think it probably all depends on when in the pay period you retire and when in the month you retire. So that's why we're giving you a range. But you would probably maybe get your last paycheck 2 weeks maximum after your last day of work. And then your first check with Acera would come 6 weeks maximum after that. So it could be 8 weeks. So that's definitely something to plan for. On your retirement application, in addition to writing down what your retirement date is and choosing beneficiaries, you're going to choose one of 5 retirement allowance options. Okay, they're listed out here. Their names are the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. Okay, for each one of these options, I'm going to show you one slide, and the slide is going to have a ton of text on it. Sorry about that. There's a lot of detail to go through, but I'll walk you through it. The top is going to say what the title of the option is. Then this first row in the table is going to talk about what you will get paid as a retiree, your retirement allowance. Then the bottom information in the bottom row or rows will talk about what your beneficiary will receive after you die. Now, your beneficiary, that word just means somebody who gets benefits. Your beneficiary for a SARA is somebody who receives your SARA death benefits after you die. So that's what this information is going to talk about. Okay, and then there's a quick question that I'll get to before I dive into this. Can you clarify how your saved sick leave affects your separation date? It does not. So you choose your retirement date, and us converting the sick leave to service credit does not affect your retirement date whatsoever. Your retirement date stays the same. It's just that regarding the numbers, the amount of service credit that you have, when we put that number into the formula, that will increase based on us converting your sick leave to service credit. But otherwise, that sick leave does not change your retirement date, the sick leave conversion. Okay, so the first option is called the unmodified option. Oh, you're welcome. This pays the highest retirement allowance to you, the retiree, of any of the 5 options. And for that reason, this is the option that the majority of people select. And let me just mention one more thing here. You're only choosing one option, and you cannot change your option later. So you're choosing this on your retirement application, and you can't change it later. There's one situation where if you are applying for a disability retirement and you have to go ahead and do the regular retirement, also known as service retirement, which we're talking about first, and then you apply for the disability retirement shortly thereafter. If you are awarded a disability retirement, and that can take some time, it sometimes takes a year, you may be able to change your option. Otherwise, you cannot change your retirement option once you're retired. Okay. But I'm going to help you understand what they all are, and you're going to pick the best option for you. Okay, so this pays the most to any of any of the other options to you as a retiree. Okay, then when you die, it pays a 60% monthly continuance to your beneficiary. Now, your beneficiary must be one of these people in bold: a spouse, a state-registered domestic partner, or an Alameda County domestic partner. You designate them as your continuance beneficiary on your retirement application. So then you go through retirement, you pass away, then they start receiving a 60% monthly continuance for whatever. It's going to be 60% of whatever you were receiving as your retirement allowance at the time of your death. They're going to get 60% of that every month for the rest of their life. As long as you have married them or registered them at least 1 year before retirement, then you can name them as your continuance beneficiary. If you apply for and are awarded a service-connected disability retirement, it's actually going to be a 100% continuance to your beneficiary. Okay, so if you don't have a spouse, state-registered domestic partner, or Alameda County domestic partner, but you have a minor child or minor children, you could name them for the 60% continuance. And again, this word continuance, it just means continuing payment. So you're getting a monthly retirement allowance payment as a retiree. Then after you die, your beneficiary is getting a monthly continuing payment known as a continuance. Okay, so you can name a minor child or minor children for a continuance, but it's not for their lifetime. It's a temporary benefit. It stops at age 18 unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school, and it can continue until age 22, at which point it would cut off. However, if they marry or register a domestic partner with the state, then it will cut off. Okay, now if you don't have one of these people to name as a beneficiary for a continuance, but you still want to choose the unmodified option, you can do that. People do that all the time. That's totally fine. And you can even name a beneficiary. You just can't name a beneficiary for a continuing payment, for a continuance. You can name a beneficiary for a lump sum payment. And what they would receive is a one-time payment. It's called a lump sum payment because it's a one-time payment, all paid in one lump sum. And it would equal the balance of your contribution account with Acera, which means that whatever you paid in to Acera throughout your entire career through employee contributions, plus all the interest that we've posted to your account over the years, minus all of the retirement allowance payments that we've already paid you out as a retiree. Now, the caveat here is that if you pass away after the first 3 to 5 years, after the first 3 to 5 years of your retirement, so if you live longer than 3 to 5 years, the balance of your account will be exhausted, which means that we will have already paid you out through retirement payments, the balance of your account. So there would not be a balance left in there for a beneficiary. That's the bad news. The good news is what that means. That means that everything you paid in throughout your entire career, we're going to give you back within the first 3 to 5 years of retirement. And everything after that is this amazing thing that you get to participate in, a defined benefit pension plan, where even though your balance of your account is depleted, you get a monthly payment every month for the rest of your life. It's amazing. It's a benefit that you can count on every month for the rest of your life. And the way that we're able to do that is because once we pay out the employee contributions, then we pay it out from the employer contributions. And then once that's exhausted, it comes from the interest that we've earned. And actually, the interest that we earn pays for 3/4 of your lifetime retirement allowance on average. Okay, so that's my little side spiel about the beauty of a defined benefit pension plan. Now, one thing that I want to mention is there is a scenario where you retire, you select the unmodified option, you name a continuance beneficiary, but your beneficiary dies before you do in retirement. So you retire, your beneficiary dies before you do. Okay, if that happens, you can name a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. Your only opportunity to name a continuance beneficiary is on your retirement application at the time of retirement. So that's the rule for that. Another scenario people ask about that is related is, well, I'm not married now, but what happens if I get married after I retire? Well, again, you can choose whatever option you want. You can choose the unmodified option, but then once you get married in retirement, you can name your new spouse as a beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. And there are other lump sum payments that will get paid out, like a partial month of your retirement allowance that we haven't paid out to you at the time of your death. If you prepay any of our healthcare for any of our healthcare plans, that would get refunded. The $1,000 lump sum death benefit that is vested, and I think there might be 1 or 2 other little amounts that would get paid out. So it is important to name a lump sum beneficiary if you don't have a continuance beneficiary. Okay, let me see. There's a question. Question is, if it's a service-connected disability, my spouse gets 100%, not 60%. Correct. It's 100% continuance if you are awarded a service-connected disability retirement. So that's the unmodified option. Option number 1 is the only one of the 5 options that does not pay a continuance out to anyone at any time. You can't name anyone for a continuance. That's why this one is subtitled lump sum to beneficiary. So what this does is it pays you, the retiree, slightly less than the unmodified option, a little bit less, might be like $10 or $20 less, maybe even less than that, or maybe even a smaller reduction than that. And then what it does is it extends it. You can name anyone as a beneficiary for the lump sum. And that is actually the case. Going back to the unmodified option, you can name anyone as a beneficiary for lump sum benefits. You can name anyone as a beneficiary for the lump sum. And it extends the time that it takes for your contribution account to be exhausted. It extends it from 3 to 5 years to 10 to 12 years through, it's like a different accounting mechanism that they use for that. And that is what the option 1 is used for. It's for people who want to get almost as much as the unmodified option, but they would like to leave a larger lump sum to a lump sum beneficiary, often because they don't have a continuance beneficiary to leave something to. That's option number 1. And when I say for lump sums, you can name anyone. You can name anyone, including like a trust or a charity. You can do that as well. You cannot name trusts or charities or estates for continuances. You can only name humans for continuances. Okay, so option number 2. This is subtitled 100% to the beneficiary, so you can kind of get an idea of where this is going. To you, the retiree, this pays less than the unmodified option, okay? And you'll see that as a theme with options 1 through 4. Pays less than the unmodified option, okay? What this does, the main thing that option 2 does is 2 things. Instead of paying a 100% continuant, lifetime continuance to your beneficiary, what did I say? Instead of paying a 60% continuance to your lifetime beneficiary, it pays 100% continuance. The second thing it does is it expands the group of people you can name for a continuance to anyone. It does not have to be a spouse or domestic partner or minor child or Alameda County domestic partner. But if you do have a spouse or domestic partner, those people could supersede anybody you designate as a beneficiary for a continuance, just so you know. Okay, so the reduction, how much less this pays than the unmodified option, is going to be based on the life expectancy of your beneficiary. If your beneficiary is significantly younger than you, they have, which means they have a longer life expectancy. When we calculate this out, we expect to pay the beneficiary more, so we're going to pay you less. So the younger your beneficiary is, the less you're going to get in your retirement allowance. And this is calculated at the time of retirement. If your beneficiary dies before you do, we do not recalculate your retirement. So whatever we calculate your retirement to be at the time of retirement, that's what it's going to be for the rest of your life, plus cost of living increases. It never gets recalculated. Okay, so if your beneficiary should die before you do, you would get to name a new beneficiary, but only for lump sum payments. And one more caveat here is that for option 2, if your beneficiary is not your spouse and they are more than 10 years younger than you, there's a good chance that we cannot pay a 100% continuance. The IRS does not allow it. They have a schedule of percentages that we can pay, and it might be like 98% or 96%. It depends on how much younger than you they are. We'll let you know that at the time of retirement, but that's just something to know about. Okay, option number 3 is very similar to option 2. It's almost exactly the same, except rather than paying 100% to a beneficiary, it's going to pay a 50% continuance. Again, you can name anyone as a continuance beneficiary. So for options 2 and 3, some people have an adult child. Well, you can name them as for a lifetime continuance. Under options 2, 3, and 4, when you couldn't do that under the unmodified option, because that's only for minor children or spouse or domestic partner. Okay, so you can name anyone as a beneficiary, and they get 50% of whatever your retirement allowance was at the time of your death. And again, the reduction is based on your beneficiary's life expectancy. One thing to mention is that this does pay you, the retiree, less than the unmodified option, but it pays more than option 2 because we're paying the beneficiary less in this case. And option number 4 is the final option. This gives you a lot of leeway. You can make a lot of different choices here. Okay. Option number 4 allows you to specify an amount, and it allows you to specify one or more continuance beneficiaries. So under options 2 and 3, you can only name one person for a lifetime, continuance as a continuance beneficiary. And on the unmodified option, you can only name one person if it's spouse or domestic partner. For minor children, you can name more than one child, but it's not a lifetime benefit, remember. So option number 4, you specify a dollar amount or a percentage to go to one or more beneficiaries. Again, you can name anyone. And all the same rules apply as options 2 and 3. So let me give you some examples of what you can do with option 4. Let's say that you're looking at you have an adult child. You're looking at options 2 and 3. And you look at option 2 and you're like, whoa, that's way too much of a reduction to my retirement allowance. Let me look at option 3. And you look at option 3, 50% to beneficiary. That's still too much of a reduction. I'm not going to be able to pay for my life in retirement. Option 4, you could name any other percentage. You could leave them a 40% continuance or a 10% continuance or a 27% continuance, whatever you want, as long as it's 100% or less. Or you could name 2 people, like you have 2 adult children and you want to leave them a little continuance. You could give each of them a 10% continuance. So that would be 20% total. Or you have a nephew that you want to leave a continuance to. You could do that because you can name anyone as a beneficiary. There you have an Acera communication manager who gave you a really wonderful presentation over the webinar. You want to name him as a beneficiary. You could do that if you want to. Just joking, don't do that. But you can name anyone as a beneficiary. Okay, so there's a question up on the board. Can you name more than one beneficiary for the lump sum payment for the unmodified option? Yes, for the lump sum, you can name as many people as you want, really. So there's no limitation there, really. But for the continuance, for the other options, you can only name one person for the lifetime continuance. But for option 4, you could name multiple people. If you have 3 adult children, you can name all 3 of them for 10%, 10%, 10%. So you got a lot of different options. Or you could name, an adult child for 20% and a nephew for 5%, or whatever you want to do. But you're just if you're doing that, you're just going to want to make sure to get a estimate ahead of time, just so you're cognizant of what your retirement allowance is going to be, because it's a beautiful thing to want to leave a lifetime continuance to a family member or friend, but another beautiful thing is for you to be financially solvent for the rest of your life, so that you don't have to lean on those people if you don't have enough retirement allowance to pay for your life. So it's definitely something to balance out. Okay, so I gave you those in the abstract. I told you what all the rules are for the 5 retirement allowance options. But you're probably going to want to go ahead and get an estimate and learn what specific dollar amounts these options will give you. And you can do that. So going back to the screenshots of the benefit estimator, you log into your account, go to the benefit estimator, do your retirement scenario, hit calculate. Now, what you're going to want to do is make sure that the beneficiary information is correct here, especially if you're interested in leaving a continuance to someone. You might see a beneficiary that you've designated in this dropdown. If you select them, make sure the date of birth is correct, because some of them are not correct and it will throw off the calculation. You hit get estimate. Again, you end up with the PDF retirement benefit estimate. Now these options might make a little more sense to you. So you can see that you can get an estimate for the unmodified option and options 1 through 3. It does not give you an estimate for option 4 because there's too many different permutations of what you can do with option 4. If you want an estimate for option 4, you should talk to your retirement counselor whenever you go in for your counseling session, if you're interested in that. Otherwise, you can see for the unmodified option, you'll note when you do your estimate, the unmodified option is the highest. You'll note that the beneficiary continuance estimate is 60% of the unmodified option. You'll see that option number 1 does not provide a continuance because that's not an option with option number 1. And you'll see that it's slightly less than the unmodified option. In this example, it is, $7 less. Option number 2, you will then get to see what the reduction from the unmodified option is for the beneficiary that you are naming in this estimate. And the same thing for option 3. And you'll note that option 3 is higher than option 2 because we pay the beneficiary less, we pay you more. And you'll note that your retirement allowance estimate and the beneficiary retirement allowance, the beneficiary continuous estimate for option 2 is the same, because remember, it pays 100%. So all this stuff is kind of falling into place with what happens in the actual benefit estimate. And then you'll notice for option 3, the beneficiary continuance is 50% of your estimated retirement allowance. So that's my pitch for which option you might want to choose. Let me take some questions here. Okay. Question number 1, does the spouse have to sign something if they are not listed as a beneficiary? Yes. On your retirement application, there are instructions for that. There is a note in the sidebar that says, if you are naming anyone other than your spouse for benefits, then you need to fill out this section at the bottom. And in the section at the bottom is a spousal acknowledgement that they understand like who's being named for the benefits. So they could decline their right to that continuance, but they do have to sign. They do have to sign for that and acknowledge that. You're welcome. Okay, let's talk about other benefits. Understanding other benefits. So what you're seeing is a list of non-guaranteed benefits. You probably recall in the beginning of the presentation that I mentioned that the retirement allowance and the cost of living adjustment and the $1,000 death benefit are guaranteed benefits. Those are vested. What you're seeing here is a list of non-guaranteed benefits, also known as non-vested benefits. These are extra benefits that the county decided that their employees needed to pay for their life in retirement. And they decided this back in the 80s, and they started a reserve fund called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve to pay for these benefits. So you probably have seen references to that reserve fund from time to time. Sometimes we send out surveys about those benefits to people. Now, these are extra benefits that are not guaranteed. They're based on availability of funds, of money in that reserve fund. And our Board of Retirement manages that fund. So they keep track of how much money is coming in, how much is going out. Their whole goal is to ensure that the fund stays sustainable into the future. So they might reduce or eliminate benefits over time. Usually they don't do that. Sometimes they'll tweak benefits here and there. The biggest thing that they'll do to ensure fund sustainability, the most common thing is sometimes they won't increase the medical subsidy from one year to the next if they're concerned about the fund sustainability. So they do make little changes over time, but this is what the set of benefits are currently. And they're the ones that set the rules on who gets the benefits in order to ensure that the fund stays sustainable. So they base it on years of ACERA service credit. You need a minimum number of years of ACERA service credit to qualify for all the healthcare benefits. Now, the supplemental cost of living adjustment, that is there. You don't need any years of ACERA service credit to qualify for that. But all the rest of them, you can see, start at 10 years of ACERA service credit. And you'll note it says ACERA service credit. So reciprocal service credit does not count, only ACERA service credit that you've earned working with ACERA. But service credit purchases do count toward this, okay, to get you over the different minimums required. And you can see there's 5 benefits here. There's a medical subsidy known as the monthly medical allowance, which is what MMA stands for. There's 3 levels of it. And you get there with 3 different amounts of years of service credit, 10, 15, and 20. There's a dental subsidy, a vision subsidy to pay for the cost of you being enrolled in dental and vision care, and then a Medicare subsidy. Let me tell you about each one of these benefits and the corresponding medical plans that we that we provide for you all. And I'll talk about each one individually. Okay, so I'll start with the medical. So the first benefit is the monthly medical allowance. It is not guaranteed, as I mentioned a minute ago. We like to drive that point home. So nobody thinks, nobody is under any illusion that this is a guaranteed benefit. What the monthly medical allowance does is it offsets the cost of being enrolled in ACERA-sponsored retiree medical plans. You can't use it for any outside plans, but we do offer group plan options and individual plan options. Now, if you're not eligible for any of these subsidies, you can still enroll yourself and or your family members as long as you have enough money in your ACERA paycheck to pay the premiums. But if you are eligible for the subsidy, you would then, if you want to take advantage of the monthly medical allowance, you would enroll in one of our ACERA-sponsored retiree medical plans, and then you could use the monthly medical allowance money to pay for premiums for group plans. And for the individual plans, you can pay for not only premiums, but copays and deductibles. The amount of the monthly medical allowance is set annually by the Board of Retirement, and that is in fact true with all 5 of those benefits. We have an actuary that keeps track of this stuff for us and does projections and monitors the health of and sustainability of that fund. You, the retiree, are responsible for any costs exceeding the amount that the monthly medical allowance covers. What this is saying is if the plan premium is more expensive than the money you have to spend with the monthly medical allowance, then you have to pay the difference, basically. And the monthly medical allowance is a subsidy for you, the retiree, ACERA retiree. It's not for any of your beneficiaries or survivors, spouses, former spouses, dependents. You can enroll your spouse or your domestic partner or your family members into the coverage. There's just no subsidy for them. So then you would have to pay the full cost of them being enrolled. Okay, so for 2023, what you're looking at is a chart of the monthly medical allowance amounts. Perfect question that somebody just asked, what's the current MMA? Here it is. If you retire from ACERA with 20 or more years of service credit, the 2023 monthly medical allowance is $616.12. If you have at least 15 years of ACERA service credit, but not 20, you are eligible for the $462.09 monthly medical allowance, which is 3/4 of the full amount. And then if you have at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, but not yet 15, you are eligible for $308.06, which is half of the full amount. Okay, so now that you kind of see what the subsidy is, then you can compare it with the premium amounts that I'm about to show you when I show you the healthcare plan, what the healthcare plans are currently. So I'm going to show you information, so a few details about our healthcare plans, including the costs. Just in general, our open enrollment is each November. So that is your chance to make changes to your plan, to enroll new family members, to change plans, to drop coverage, add coverage, all that stuff. But you don't have to wait for open enrollment in order to get into our healthcare plans, because you can also get in with a qualifying event, and retirement is a qualifying event. And our retirement counselors will help you sign up for the plan that you need at the time of retirement so that you can get right into the plan with 0 gap in coverage. So that's just a service that we offer. What you're seeing is a chart of the titles of the different plan options, and it's separated into non-Medicare eligible plans and Medicare eligible plan options. You can see there's 3 companies here: Kaiser Permanente, United Healthcare, and Via Benefits. Kaiser and United Healthcare are the group plan options. Via Benefits is the individual plan options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the non-Medicare group plan options, then I'll show you the Medicare group plan option, and then I'll talk about the Via Benefits individual plans together because it's more efficient to do it that way. You can find the full details. I'm just going to show you a few details of each plan. You can find the full details in our annual enrollment guide at the shortcut is acera.org/guide. It's a PDF. It's 32 or 34 pages, I think. And all the details are in there. Okay, so this is a table showing you the costs for enrolling in one of our non-Medicare group plans for 2023. And so these are the premium amounts, and a premium just means that is the monthly cost of being enrolled in a healthcare plan. It's called a premium. You'll note that there are three options: Kaiser Permanente HMO, United Healthcare Signature Value HMO, United Healthcare Signature Value Advantage HMO. You'll note that the United Healthcare Signature Value HMO is the cheapest plan at $843.94. Also, if you think back to the 20-year monthly medical allowance amount, in fact, I'll just go back to that slide, you will also note that it does not cover even the cheapest non-Medicare plan at $616.12. So you would end up paying an additional $200 and maybe 20 or 30 some dollars to be enrolled in that plan. You can see that you can enroll Self Plus One, and you can see what the premiums are, family, and those are the premiums, and the co-pays for that plan are $15. Okay, so one more thing about this is that you'll also note that these are the same plans the county offers because they actually negotiate these plans for us. Regarding how the monthly medical allowance is paid out to you, what I'm showing you now is a very crude illustration of your Acera check stub with everything removed except the pertinent information. Okay, so you have your gross pay, right? Then you go to the deductions column. If you were to enroll in this example in the Kaiser Permanente HMO, you can see the self premium is $909.74. So we would deduct that for you from your paycheck, from your Acera check, pension check, and we'll send that over to Kaiser for you. So you don't have to worry about paying your premium. Then, if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, whichever one you're eligible for, we will put that into your check in the additions column. So you'll see MMA in the additions column. And so you can see you end up paying the difference. And in your real check, there will be other stuff. There's going to be tax withholding because you're going to owe taxes on your income because you did not pay taxes on your contributions going into the system, and any other healthcare enrollments that you make. So that's how that works that's how the MMA is paid for the group plans. Now, what you're seeing here is the Medicare plan option. Medicare is the federal government's healthcare system, and you usually are first eligible for that when you turn 65. At that point, the federal government starts offering you a lot of healthcare in the form of the Medicare system. There are these other plans like the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan that you're looking at here. What they do is they offer a higher level of coverage than Medicare itself. And all you need to do is enroll in that plan. Kaiser provides the coverage. They get reimbursed from Medicare for most of the cost, and then you get charged for whatever the difference is on a monthly basis from a premium that you get charged. Now, you'll see that the premium for this plan is much, much lower than the what we call early retiree plans, which means pre-Medicare plans. It's $316.81 per month. And what I've done here is I have included a row. I've included a couple more rows here. One is with the 20-year monthly medical allowance being subtracted from the premium, and then the bottom row is your out-of-pocket cost. Now, you're probably curious about what's happening here because the 20-year monthly medical allowance is a lot more than this, right? Well, one of the caveats with the monthly medical allowance is it only pays up to the amount of the self premium. So you don't get to keep the change. If you enroll in the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan, your premium that you have to pay to Kaiser is $316.81, and your monthly medical allowance reimbursement is $316.81, meaning that your out-of-pocket cost is zero, meaning it's a free plan. So you could enroll in Medicare itself and get that level of coverage, or if you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit, the out-of-pocket cost to you is zero. At least for 2023, it is. So going back to the monthly medical allowance chart, let's see. Yeah, $462.09. So it by far covers. The 10-year almost covers the $316. So you just end up owing a few dollars out of pocket. So it's a really good deal once you're Medicare eligible to just go ahead and enroll in this Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan, because it gives you a higher level of coverage for, in some cases, no extra costs if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit for, just a few dollars more. And then, yeah, the copays for that are $10. Okay, so those are the group plan options. I showed you the early retiree plan options. If you're younger than 65, I showed you the 65 and older group plan option, Kaiser Permanente. There are some other options here, and these are getting an individual plan. The individual plans are administered by this company called Via Benefits. So first off, let's start off with who can enroll in an individual plan. What do you need to do to qualify to actually enroll? Okay, if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you simply need to live inside the US, but outside the Acera group plan service areas. Now, the group plan service areas for Kaiser and United Healthcare are, and I should just list those out. I should make a note of that. It's the Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser, I believe they have Santa Cruz also. So if you live inside one of those service areas and you're under 65, you cannot enroll in an individual plan through Via Benefits. You have to pick one of the group plans. Now, if you are age 65 and older, you're Medicare eligible. In order to enroll, in order to choose an individual plan through Via Benefits, you need to live inside the US anywhere. And you simply need to enroll in Medicare Parts A and B. So that means that you can live in our group plan service area and still choose an individual plan through Via Benefits on the Medicare side if you want to. So you could live in San Leandro or Oakland, and you're Medicare eligible, and you can choose from one of Via Benefits individual plans instead of the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. And you want to see the previous slide. Okay, so this is the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. It's $316.81 is the premium. Now, in order to enroll in this plan, yeah, you're welcome. Or the Medicare plan through Via Benefits, like I said, you have to enroll in Medicare Parts A and B. The Medicare enrollment is pretty easy. Some of it happens automatically with Part A if you've paid enough into Part A. We have a whole seminar on that. When it comes time, you can take that Medicare transition seminar, and I'll show you where to enroll in that. Go to our website, go under news and events, go down to Medicare seminars. And we hold these 6 times a year, every 2 months. Looks like there's 2 more this year. If you turn 65 in retirement, we'll actually send you an invitation in the mail to enroll in that, so you don't even have to remember to do it. Okay, so Via Benefits. What is Via Benefits? How does it work? Via Benefits is a private health insurance exchange that we contract with. What they do is they contract directly with, I think it might even be 100 insurance carriers at this point. To all those insurance carriers compete in this one marketplace called Via Benefits that they've created for your healthcare business, which means that across this 100 insurance carriers, there's thousands of different plans that you could choose from. Now, it all depends on where you live. And so the way it works is that you just need to live inside the US, you can find a plan. You can find plans anywhere in the US. The way it works is when you want to enroll in this, you give them a call on the telephone. You can also do it on their website. But if you call them on the telephone, you're going to talk to a benefits advisor, and they are certified, they're salaried, they're not commissioned. So that means they're not biased. They're not going to steer you to one carrier or the other based on some commission that they get. That's not how it works. What you do is you tell them where you live or where you're going to live, how much you want to spend, what level of coverage you want to get. You could even tell them what doctors you want to visit. You could bring a list of doctors. You could even tell them what prescription drugs you need, and they will help narrow down their thousands of plans to just a few plans, and then you can choose from among those. The monthly premiums, of course, depend on the plan that you select. Benefits depend on the plan that you select. And just a reminder, for the VIA benefits plans, you can not only use the monthly medical allowance to pay for the monthly premiums, but if you choose a deductible plan, it will help you pay the deductible and it will help you pay copays, so you can get reimbursed for those. And speaking of reimbursement, the monthly medical allowance works differently for the VIA benefits plans than the group plans. And when I say it works differently, what I mean is that it's paid to you differently. And this is yet another crude illustration of how this works. Okay, here's a Sarah. Let's say that you're eligible for one of the monthly medical allowance amounts. Okay, so what we're going to do, and let's say that you enroll in an individual VIA benefits plan. So what Sarah is going to do is we're going to take your monthly medical allowance dollars and we're going to send that over to VIA benefits. They are going to deposit it into a health reimbursement account that they're going to keep for you. They're going to open this health reimbursement account, and your monthly medical allowance dollars are going to get parked there at the beginning of the year. Okay, then you have enrolled in an individual insurance plan through VIA benefits, and you are going to have to pay the insurance company directly your monthly premium. So you pay them. You're out some money. Okay, then now that you have insurance, you're going to go to the doctor, and there's probably going to be a copay. So you're going to pay the doctor the copay. You're out more money. So what you do is you submit reimbursement claims back to VIA benefits, and they will pay you your monthly medical allowance dollars to your bank account. And when you set things up with them, they will have all this stuff done electronically. It all happens electronically. You don't have to like get your checkbook out or anything if you don't want to. And they'll even help you set up recurring payments to your insurance company and recurring reimbursements so that you don't have to think about that. And then you would just submit any additional expenses like copays to them. And they have an app, and I think they make it pretty easy for all that to happen. One more thing I want to say about VIA benefits is that if you are Medicare eligible and you choose an individual plan through VIA benefits, what our Board of Retirement has decided is that those plans that VIA benefits is offering are so inexpensive that they decided that they would offer a slightly lower monthly medical allowance amount for the Medicare members in VIA benefits plans. And so that's what's listed out here. They do track to see how many members use up all the money in the year, and it's actually a very low percentage. So for the vast majority of members, this monthly medical allowance amount is totally sufficient to pay all of their premiums, deductibles, and copays throughout the year. Okay, let's talk about dental plans. I do apologize, excuse me. Okay, so dental plans. You can see that we have a chart here, and there's two dental plans. There's the Delta Dental PPO and the Delta Care USA. And there's kind of two subsections of columns, voluntary enrollment and mandatory enrollment. The way this works is that if you retire with at least 10 years of ACERA service credit, you have to enroll in one of these plans, but it doesn't cost you anything. That's what's meant by mandatory enrollment. That, and why it says self and subsidy here, the self premium is the same as the subsidy. That's just how the board has set it up, and it's most efficient to administer the plan that way. So for example, if you enroll in the Delta Dental PPO and you enroll just yourself and you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit or a service-connected disability retirement, your self premium is $51.24 and the subsidy is $51.24. And you would see those two amounts come in and out of the same check. And so it costs you $0. Same thing for Delta Care USA. The PPO is a nationwide plan. Delta Care USA is California only. I think they should rename it to Delta Care California, but I'm not an advisor for Delta Dental, so that's not going to happen. Okay, so you can see that you can enroll your self plus one, so your spouse or domestic partner. You can enroll your family. You just pay the difference between the subsidy and that premium. And if you have less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can still enroll. There's a different set of premiums. You just have to pay the whole thing. There's no subsidy. And then there's a question, is this dental also for if you're on Medicare? Medicare is just for medical. It's totally separate. So there's no federal system that pays for dental care, and there's no age where you go from like one system to the other. So it's all totally separate. One thing to note is that for 2023, for the Delta Dental PPO, there is a plan year maximum that it only covers $1,300 worth of stuff and that worth of care, and that does not include cleanings and x-rays and preventative stuff. That's everything else. The board decided that for 2024, they would raise that up to $1,900 so that it's the same as what the active members experience. So that's coming up for the next plan year, which starts February 1st. Okay, vision plans. Very similar chart. VSP is the company that provides the care. There's two plans, VSP Standard and Premium. Also, the mandatory enrollment part, where if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you must enroll in the standard plan, but it costs you $0. So therefore, the self premium and the subsidy are the same at $4.63. And again, you can enroll self plus one, family members, and you just pay the difference. The premium plan exists because you can buy up into that. It's also known as the buy up plan, and it offers a more extensive set of benefits than the standard plan. Like, for example, you can get frames every 12 months with the premium plan versus 24 months with the standard plan. And then again, if you have less than 10 years of service credit, you can voluntarily enroll and pay your whole way through it. And again, if you want more details on these plans, we have full details at acera.org/guide. Okay, the fourth benefit, non-guaranteed benefit that I'll talk about is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. This is another healthcare benefit, works a little bit differently than the other ones. When you are retired from Acera and you want to seek healthcare through us, you want to enroll in one of our plans, we mandate that if you're Medicare eligible, 65 and older, that you have to choose one of the Medicare plans. It's just cheaper for Acera, and it's way cheaper for you. So it's just better that way. Because of that mandate, the board has this Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, because Medicare does come with a cost. Medicare Part B comes with a cost. Let me just give you a quick rundown on Medicare, like the 1-minute version. Medicare Part A is hospitalization coverage. Medicare Part B is coverage for doctor's visits. Medicare Part D, as in Delta, is coverage for prescription drugs. So usually, if you have paid into the Medicare system for at least 10 years, Medicare Part A will be free for you. If not, you can still enroll in Medicare Part A. It will just come with a cost. Like a lot of safety members, They don't participate in paying into Medicare and Social Security. So you can still enroll in Medicare. It just comes with a cost. Now, for Medicare Part B, there's a cost to everyone. And for 2023, and it's based on income, there's different tiers based on income. The tiers are really wide, though. So most people pay the base level, which is $164.90 for 2023. What the board has decided to do is set the level of the subsidy at the lowest level anybody pays, which is $164.90. So what will likely end up happening is when you become Medicare eligible, you enroll in Medicare, the federal government starts charging you $164.90 per month for Medicare. If you enroll in the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, you just have to fill out an enrollment form one time. We will start putting $164.90 into your Acera check to cover the whole cost of that. So it's a really good deal. And you just have to remember to enroll. We will remind you to enroll when you go to that Medicare transition webinar. We also send out reminders every year in our open enrollment packet. In order to qualify for this, you need to have, again, at least 10 years of Acera service credit or the service-connected disability retirement. And you need to go ahead and enroll in Medicare Part B and maintain enrollment, and then submit that form. And that's how you do it. Let me see if I want to say anything else about that. No, I think that's good for now. Okay, the fifth and final non-guaranteed benefit is the supplemental cost of living adjustment. Now, don't get this confused with the vested cost of living adjustment. That one's guaranteed. This one is extra, but this is a really powerful benefit. And this is when we survey people, this is a really popular benefit because this keeps you from losing too much money to inflation in your retirement. What this does is it keeps you at least 85% of your original buying power at retirement. So whatever buying power you enjoyed at the time of retirement, if inflation accumulates so much that you lose more than 15% of your buying power to inflation, supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and it keeps you at 85% of your original buying power for the rest of your retirement. So you can never go below 85% of your original buying power. It's pretty amazing. So I think it's a really good benefit. So that brings us to one of our final slides, understanding life events. This is a quick bulleted point list. I don't have a lot of information about these, and that's because they don't necessarily apply to everyone. I just want you to be cognizant that these concepts, programs, and rules exist, and that way, you know, if it applies to you, you can go get more information on it. And there's links to go get more information on here. Okay, so deferring retirement. I already mentioned this. This is quitting before retirement, which means that you stop working and you don't retire immediately. You defer your retirement to a later date. I think I've said that 5 times in this webinar already. But you know, sometimes you got to hear a thing for it to get processed. So if you're going to do that, that's totally fine. The only main thing that happens is you lose your sick leave. It's not a huge deal. I don't know. I'll let you have your own emotions about that. And I'll have my own emotions about that. But it is good to read our page on deferring your retirement at acera.org/deferred. I think there's even a shortcut, and I just tried it, defer, acera.org/DEFER. So you can save three characters. So go ahead and read that page if you're thinking about deferring your retirement. Next topic, death benefits before retirement. I told you a lot about all of the death benefits your beneficiaries will have access to after you pass away, after you've retired. Should you pass away before you retire, there's a different set of death benefits that your beneficiaries have access to. And you can read about that at acera.org/death. And it's a good idea to go ahead and make sure that your beneficiaries are up to date as of right now. Because you're not retired yet, you will get to name your beneficiaries on your retirement application, but it's good to have those on file, all the way up until your retirement date. Have you named a beneficiary? You probably have. Is that beneficiary current? Maybe not. So go ahead and log into your account on our website, acera.org. Press the login button, log in, click the beneficiary page. See who you've nominated as a beneficiary. If you find that your beneficiary that is nominated in there is your spouse from 3 spouses ago, you're going to want to go ahead and renominate your beneficiary. That is my advice. And there are links on that page that take you out to the beneficiary designation form. You just use the form, redesignate your beneficiary. You can email it to us, quick code it, put it in the US mail, or there's a very secure upload feature inside that account, your Acera account, that you can use to scan in your form and upload it. We are going to get the beneficiary forms up in DocuSign within the next 2-3 weeks, but they're not up there yet. Okay, so next bullet point, divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. California is a community property state, which means that should you get divorced or dissolve your state-registered domestic partnership, the retirement that you've earned with Acera is one of those pieces of community property that is going to be on the table for division when you sit down to work out your divorce agreement to divide the property. So sometimes what happens is a outgoing spouse or domestic partner will take part of your Acera account with them, which means they take part of your service credit and employee contributions. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and you'll just agree to split your retirement check. However you're going to do it, it's definitely good to read that page before you go down that road, just to know what you're getting into regarding your Acera benefits. And we can provide, our legal department can provide more information if you have more questions. We can't provide you advice. You have to pay a divorce attorney like $35 every 6 minutes for that. But that's how that goes. Okay, disability retirement. This is something that exists. I've referred to it a couple of times already. Should you become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, you do have the option of applying for disability retirement. And there are some advantages if you are awarded disability retirement. One of those is that your part of your retirement allowance can be considered non-taxable, so you don't have to pay income taxes on it. But disability retirement is a whole topic. We have a whole page on it. If that's something that you're facing, go ahead and read that information. And we have a disability unit that helps you through that process. If you're going to work after retirement and you're going to go work for anyone who's not one of our 6 participating employers, that's totally fine. We are going to consider you an Acera retiree and pay you your retirement allowance every month for the rest of your life. So you have at it. Now, if you are going to come back to work for one of our 6 employers, then there are some rules around that and some restrictions around that. So go ahead and read our page on working after retirement at acera.org/working. Finally, if you relocate after retirement, and many people do, go ahead and go to acera.org/address and fill out our address change form. It doesn't take very long. You can do it online. And that way we get your address updated in our system for you, and we're able to send you your open enrollment packet to the correct address every year. Okay, you can sign up for Acera News at acera.org/subscribe. If you have more questions, you can contact us at acera.org/contact or 510-628-3000. I see a couple of questions up on the board. Oh, you're absolutely welcome. We have a few minutes. Let me answer those. Or let me just say that, let me just go to this part. On behalf of Acera's Board of Retirement and Acera staff, we wish you a beautiful retirement. You've earned it. So thanks for spending this time with me. You all are amazing. Thanks for doing your public service. And I wish you a beautiful retirement. Okay, so let me do the next two questions. If you need to run to the restroom, we're not going to start up the defi deferred compensation presentation. Let's start it. We'll start it 2 minutes late. So it's 12:12 now. Let's start it at 12:17. That'll give you 5 minutes to go do your thing. And then I'll answer these questions that are up on the board right now. And then I'll turn it over to Gene Hilliard. And I've finished 3 minutes early. I'm usually like pushing 5 or 10 minutes late. Okay, so how does the supplemental cost of living adjustment work? The way it works is that every spring, when we're getting ready to pay the vested cost of living adjustment, we also calculate the supplemental cost of living adjustment. And remember how I said that we have a COLA bank, and if inflation over the years accumulates in your COLA bank, inflation over the years will accumulate in your COLA bank whenever inflation is higher than the maximum of 2 or 3% that we can pay you by law. If you have a COLA bank accumulation of more than 15%, like let's say it's 16%, then the supplemental cost of living adjustment will kick in and it will pay you the dollar amount equivalent of that 1% to keep you at 85% of your original purchasing power. You don't have to do anything. It all happens automatically. We keep track of it. We do, have a news announcement every year at that time that says who's going to get the supplemental cost of living adjustment as of April 1st for the next year. If you get it, you'll see it show up in your retirement check. That's how it works. Next question, can a beneficiary live outside of the country? Absolutely. You name your beneficiary when you fill out the beneficiary designation form. You just give us their contact info, their address outside the country, their phone number outside the country, their email address, and we'll be able to get a hold of them. Does the website talk about if you were to move out of state? What happens if you move out of state? I do believe it does. Let me go over to the website. Okay, so under the retiree section, we have life changes after retirement. And then we have name, address, and phone change. So address change, it gives you information on if you're a retiree. It says, here's the DocuSign link to our address name change form. Here's the DocuSign link to the California tax withholding form, because you can reduce your you can cancel your California tax withholding because you're not going to owe California taxes anymore. Or if you're going to live in California part of the time, you can reduce your tax withholding. It does give you a note about foreign addresses. And it does talk about moving your eligibility for a Sarah Health Plan coverage. So that's where you would find that information. Next question, can you get Social Security before you retire? I doubt it. I think, I'm not an expert in Social Security, but I think that they have a rule about that. If you're working, you're paying into the Social Security system, and you can't start collecting that until you retire. Do you know anything about that, Gene?
I do not, unfortunately. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Although probably shouldn't say this. There are some folks that tell me that they're collecting Social Security while they're still working. How
Oh,
they're doing it, I'm not sure. But
oh,
check in with Social Security Administration. That's the best place to go.
SSA.gov.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah, we'll just give it another minute, see if there's any other questions that come up. And that way, anyone that has any other ACERA questions and feels like they're already well versed in the deferred comp, they can take off if they want. I don't recommend that though, because Gene, I mean, he's an expert in deferred comp. I mean, it was what he's been doing his entire career. He's going to tell you things that you don't know. I learn something every time. Okay, well, it is 12:17. Why don't I turn it over to you, Gene?
All right, sounds good. Let's see. Show. I don't know how long we've been doing this together, Mike, but I think I'm finally starting to get the whole sharing the screen and moving it to my PowerPoint on my end after all this time.
Yeah,
Takes
you've
a
done it
minute.
flawlessly all 3 times this week.
Man, I don't know, but hey, let's see if I can keep that going. You want me to go ahead and get started?
Yep, go for it.
All right, here we go. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon? Yes, it's 12 o'clock. My name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company here in Oakland. We take care of taxes for folks, financial planning. We do accounting for small businesses. I'm sure I've probably had a conversation with many of you or some of you. I'm a colleague. I work pretty closely with Mark Tomei and Jason Brummett. We're both in the kind of the same capacity, but I was tasked with the webinars with the Sarah. Little bit about my background. I've been a licensed stockbroker stockbroker, financial consultant, whatever you want to call me, for roughly the past 20 years, helping my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of their children and grandchildren. I'm also a retirement counselor. And my goal as a retirement counselor is to assist you guys with maintaining your current lifestyle in retirement. What exactly does that mean? That means I want you to get the same paycheck you're getting today while you're working. I want you to get that in retirement. You're close. Many of you, if you're tier 2, if you're tier 1 and you're still around, I don't know what you're doing, but you're tier 2, you're going to get a significant amount of your salary in retirement. And I'm sure Mike has already talked about how go on the Acera website, play with the calculator, adjust the age, see how much you're going to get in retirement. Okay. The other thing I didn't mention is I was hired roughly 14 years ago by, at the time, Prudential Retirement, which, by the way, is now considered Empower Retirement. So I was hired 14 years ago to provide retirement planning, investment guidance / advice. I was also hired to provide education. And this is part of what I'm doing today, is just providing a little education to you folks that are getting close to retirement. And this presentation is going to pretty much center around retirement readiness. How ready are you? That's what I'm sure many of you got on this call, this webinar, to find out, right? Are you ready? Are you in a position to be ready? Okay. But before we get into that, I just want each of you to, if you haven't already, kind of envision what the future holds in terms of retirement. What exactly are you going to be doing? Most people that I talk to when we're discussing retirement, the first thing they say is, "Hey, I'm going traveling." But when I say, "Well, where are you going?" People draw a blank. I'm going somewhere. I'm traveling, but I don't know exactly where. And for me, it's important for me to have an idea, especially if I'm helping you in terms of retirement savings. I need to know where you're going, because I want to know how much is it going to cost. Are you traveling around the world? Or are you just going to Vegas or Florida here and there? There's a huge cost difference. But I want you to try to envision what you're going to be doing. And I would encourage, do a lot. One thing that we now know about COVID, tomorrow's not promised. So I encourage each and every one of you to maintain what I would call, that go-go phase of retirement. Right? What else are you doing? Spending some time with friends and family? Are you splitting time between vacation homes? What's on your calendar? Or are you just going to sit at home and hang out? But envision what you're going to be doing in retirement. And if you're 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years away from retirement, and if you find out you're not saving enough or don't have enough, I can help you come up with a strategy to create the nest egg that you're looking for. So what are the determining factors when you're thinking about retirement readiness, right? Social Security, how much am I getting? Pension, how much am I going to get from a Sarah? How much do I have in a 401k, 403b, 457? What sort of retirement income should I expect? Healthcare costs, how much is that going to be? Are you emotionally ready? So these are the determining factors when you're thinking about retirement readiness. Big picture, obviously, it's income. How much income am I bringing in? Where does the income come from? Social Security. That's big picture. The details can get a little complicated. I'll touch on that a little bit, but how are you going to invest your money? How much should you take out of your deferred comp account per year? And to put yourself in a position where you don't run out of money. That's one of the biggest fears of many retirees. Dying is not it. It's running out of money, right? Taxes. All right. What's the tax situation in retirement? Inflation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these are details that you want to kind of flush out at some point before you retire, or we can come up with a strategy, when you're already retired. Okay. So, but let's talk about retirement income. Where is it going to come from? Well, I talked about it earlier. We got Social Security, we have pensions, other retirement plans. Maybe you have some investment property that you're living off of that's going to sustain your life in retirement. Maybe this property you're going to inherit if something happens to your parents. Do you anticipate working? I'm sure there's many of you on this call that maybe you're thinking, okay, I'm going to retire. And maybe you're thinking, I'm not bringing in enough from a Sarah. So maybe I'm just going to continue to work full time. But have you thought about maybe you just want to work part time, doing something you enjoy, making a couple of bucks a month, a couple thousand bucks a month to cover you? Because I encourage, you don't want to, at least this is my view, you don't want to just stop working altogether and just sit around. Body in motion stays in motion. You want to keep doing something to keep your mind sharp. So do something part-time, making a couple of bucks a month, right? Gives you a reason to get up in the morning, right? So this is pretty much where your income is going to come from. Do you have enough for retirement? These are some questions you want to ask yourself. So I want you to stop for a moment and read through them. Are you in a position to stop working? What do your expenses look like in retirement? Do you have any clue of what they're going to look like in retirement? What are my healthcare costs? Are you going to have a side hustle? I'm sure many of you have heard the kids talk about side hustles, but I'm sure that you may want to do something, as I just mentioned, something on the side in retirement. Where do you want to live? Do you want to stay in the Bay? You want to move to maybe a low cost state? These are some things you want to bump around in your mind. Have you saved enough towards retirement? I'm sure some of you are thinking, oh man, I've been doing $100 a month for the past 20 years. I should probably do more. All right, well, here are the maximums. So if say you're a sheriff deputy and you're, early 50s and you're about to retire, well, you can, or you're under 50. Or you're any person that works for the county and you're under 50, you can put away $22,500. That's the max into deferred comp. If you're 50 and over, the IRS will allow you to put away an additional $7,500, bringing your total to $30,000 a year. So you can do $22,500 a year if you're under 50. You can do $30,000 a year if you're 50 and over. And if you have even more money, you can put money in an IRA. Here are the limits for an IRA. You can't do this within the county, but you can go to your brokerage company, go to the bank, put some extra money in there into an IRA. You can do both. This is a 457B plan that you have with the county that will allow you to do both plans, an IRA and the 457. Unlike a 401k or a 403B, they won't let you do both. But here with the county, you can do both. If you have even more money, maybe you inherit some money, or maybe you have some money sitting at the credit union not earning a lot, and you wish you can somehow get that into deferred comp. there may be an opportunity for you to put away up to $45,000 a year into deferred comp. That's going to be the max if you qualify. And you can do that for 3 years prior to retirement. If this sounds like something that you may be interested in, reach out to me. I'll give you the parameters. I'll point you in the right direction to get the ball rolling there if you are interested. And that's called the 3-year catch-up. Not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but this is basically telling you, hey, go find out how much you're going to get from Acera. Okay, so just go to acera.org, use their calculator. And it also talks about the website for deferred comp to use the retirement income calculator. That's a nice little calculator that you can use to see where you stand in terms of retirement savings. So that's AlamedaCountyDCP.com. Let's talk about Social Security real quick. You're going to have options when it comes to Social Security. You can collect it at 62, collect it at 66 or 67, or you can wait and collect it age 70. The longer you wait, the more money you're potentially going to get in Social Security. And here's a little snapshot of roughly your average salary that you've paid, that you're making. And here's how much you will roughly get from Social Security at full retirement. Focus your attention on, well, let's pick one, 85,000. So if your average $85,000 a year, you're looking at getting roughly $2,600 a month. Does that cover your bills? Absolutely not. But it's a nice little addition if and when you decide to collect it. Here is a bit of a snapshot of what percent of your salary is through Social Security. So if you're making $86,000 a year and you're getting whatever, what was that number? I don't know, $2,600. That's going to be about 34% of your salary. Definitely not going to cut it in terms of paying for retirement. So if you're on this call and you're looking for Social Security to take care of you, I'm sure you all know that's not going to happen. But it's a nice little supplement. Here's another little chart I like to show. It kind of gives you an idea of, all right, which is the better option in terms of age to collect Social Security? Is it 62? Is it 66? Is it 70? So I'll direct your attention to 80. This is if you live until you're 80 and you collect Social Security at 62, you die at 80, you can anticipate receiving $223,000 in benefits. If you wait it until full retirement, roughly, you're looking at $299. If you waited till age 70 to collect it, you're at $287. So clearly here, more is better. If you lived until you were 80, collecting Social Security at full retirement, 66, 67, is a better option. And then here's 85. If you live to 85, to get the most bang for your buck, wait till 70, right? Age 90, if you live into your 90, to get the most bang for your buck, collect Social Security at age 70. Now, you may be thinking in your mind, well, obviously here, clearly I should wait to age 70. But remember the word that I used here, if you live until 90, if you live to 85. So there's the if, and what COVID has taught us, tomorrow is not promised. Wouldn't it be sad if you were waiting until age 70 to collect Social Security and you didn't make it? So I'm of the opinion most people fall smack dab in the middle, collecting it at full retirement. But I'm of the opinion, collect it when you retire. Once you finish working, if it's 65, 63, 66, whatever, collect it then and enjoy your money. That's just my personal opinion, but check with your CPA, tax advisor, et cetera, get their opinion, and maybe we can somehow meet in the middle. Okay. How does Social Security work with pensions? I know there's a lot of folks reach out to me wanting to understand the windfall elimination provision. You know, all these fancy words, but here's the deal. When it comes to Social Security and whether or not your Social Security benefits will be slashed for whatever reason, it's all about if you paid into Social Security or not. If you have a job with the county and you've never paid into Social Security, obviously you're not going to get a whole lot in Social Security. It's probably going to be small. It's only only going to cover salary that maybe when you were a kid, when you were working at McDonald's. That's why it's going to be small. But if you spent your entire career working for Alameda County that pays into whatever your job is, that pays into Social Security, then clearly you're going to get full maximum benefit. But if you moved around, some jobs you paid into it, some jobs you didn't, then your Social Security benefits are going to be reduced somewhat. To confirm all this, best place to go is SSA.gov. They keep track of most of that information. So you can look in there to see how your benefits will be affected working with Alameda County or any other county. Okay. Budgeting. People don't like talking about that, but it's important. We need to figure out what your budget is going to look like in retirement, right? These are some of the benefits of creating a retirement budget. You have the opportunity to prioritize future spending, right? Do you plan on traveling to see your grandkids that live in New York? If that's the plan, we need to make sure we're putting away money to cover that, right? It may help you, your retirement savings last longer. If you're able to budget now and not just spend just to spend, you might be able to carve out some extra money to put away towards retirement. All right. What's the foundation of a retirement budget? Well, you start with your current monthly expenses. All right. What are my bills right now? What are my fixed and variable? What are my needs or wants? And then you stop, you have that done. Then you anticipate, all right, what am I looking like in terms of retirement? Is the house paid off? Right. So and then you can consider your expectations in terms of retirement. Right. So these are important factors in terms of when you're heading towards retirement. Let's put that budget together. Let's get a feel for what our monthly bills are going to be in the future. Okay. These are a bunch of expenses that you might want to consider, or maybe you haven't even thought about, but you want to consider it. And I want to direct your attention to what mostly comes up with folks that are nearing retirement or in retirement, and they hadn't thought it all the way through, is home improvements, right? How long has that tile roof been up there? Has it been 30 years, 25, 28 years? Chances are it's going to need to get replaced. And you want to be prepared for that, right? Caring for aging parents. That's another big one. Your mom is doing just fine wherever she's at, and then all of a sudden she takes a turn for the worse and you got to step in, right? Is your home set up in a position to take care of your mom? There's some potentially extra money that you're going to have to come up with, right? So those are some things you want to think about. Grandchildren, right? Maybe you don't have grandchildren now, but maybe out of nowhere, you're responsible for caring for your grandchildren or grandchild. Are you prepared for that? So these are some things that you want to talk to your friends about, or talk to folks that are retired and ask them questions. Hey, did anything pop up with you that you didn't anticipate in retirement? So you can be in a position to be ready for whatever that happens to be. Okay. All starts, this is kind of a redundant slide. It all starts with your current budget. So craft your own budget and then tweak it 4 or 5 years from now, or whenever you're planning on retirement. If there's going to be a credit card that you're going to pay off by the time you're retired, perfect. And this kind of reminds me of, and this is not part of the presentation, people often come to me and want to know, if you borrowed against your deferred comp and you still have a balance and you retire, what happens? And I'll just talk about it now. What happens is you'll have if you have a loan that's outstanding and you retire, when you're working, the loan payment comes out of your paycheck. You're no longer going to have a county paycheck. Yeah, you'll get an ACERA paycheck, but that's not tied into deferred comp. So you'll have the option of continue to make payments out of your own pocket. So you'll need to write a check. Keep in mind that you'll make payments once a quarter. So you need to save a lot more to come up with a quarterly payment. You can continue to make payments until it's paid off, or you can elect to say, you know what, Gene, I'm not paying that loan back. in which case that's considered a withdrawal, and then there's going to be taxes due. So if anyone has that scenario and wants to talk about that in more detail, or may have that scenario, just give me a call and let me know. Emotions. A lot of people don't think about their emotional or their state of mind in retirement. They're just excited about retiring. And what I have learned recently in my retirement counseling sessions is that, you know, this is something that we need to talk about. What your emotional situation is going to look like as you near and as you're in retirement. But this is what you go through. Growing interests. I'm sure many of you right now are in the growing interest phase. Hey, I'm interested in retirement. And then all of a sudden you move to, oh man, I'm really excited about retirement, right? All the things that you're going to be, you know, garden, I'm going to volunteer, I'm going to do this or that. And then there's going to be a little stress that you're going to have to deal with because your routine has been thrown off. All for 40, 50 years, you've had a routine in terms of getting up and going to work. Everything is pre-planned. And when you retire, nothing's pre-planned. You get to do whatever you want. So that creates some stress. You adjust and then you kind of settle down into a routine. You make up your own routine, but it takes some time. Here are some of the common feelings people experience in retirement: loss of self-identity, procrastination. Hey, procrastination is a big one. Hey, I don't have to get up out of that bed to do XYZ. I'm retired. So but then you turn around, a whole day has gone by and you didn't do what you had planned on doing. So procrastination, structure, loneliness. You know, maybe you're the only one retired. Maybe your spouse, domestic partner, significant other hasn't retired. They're going to work. Maybe your friends are going to work, right? So loneliness could creep in. Depression, death anxiety, especially with COVID. You're getting closer. You're on the opposite side of 50 or 40. You know, some people feel, oh, all right, it's all downhill from now. So these are some of the psychological effects that you want to be prepared for and get ready for. Here, common issues retirees face, you know, fulfilling that emotional need. And that's why I talked about earlier, continue to work, do something part-time, you know, but in addition to that, come up with some hobbies, you know, playing tennis, going to the gym. That's another thing I want to bring up. That should be part of your routine now, even though you're still working and in retirement. Budget to go to the gym. Very important. Budget to go to the gym. Body in motion stays in motion. Get on the treadmill. You don't have to do a bunch of marathon running. Just do some walking for 20 minutes. Once you're finished with that for 20 minutes, do some stretching. And I'm sure some of you are feeling it right now. Man, I am stiff as a board, right? Do some stretching. And if you need some help, folks at the gym can show you how to do necessary stretching, you know? So hit the gym, do some walking, do some stretching. Also, I would encourage riding a bike. I'm sure you're thinking, Gene, it's been 20 years since I've ridden a bike, but that keeps your balance. Riding a bike is balancing. So put in your routine, I'm going to ride, I don't know, a mile a day. I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to stretch, I'm going to ride my bike, right? Do some of those things. That really helps with your balancing. And then lastly, hey, make sure you stay hydrated. Very important. I'm sure many of you already know this, but sometimes you know, when you're retired, you procrastinate. You know, you're supposed to, when you're at work, you have a routine in terms of drinking your water. But when you're retired, that routine gets thrown off. So try to throw that into the routine. So hydration is extremely important. It helps you sleep. I know it helps me sleep. I was wondering what was going on. I'm constantly waking up in the middle of the night. I stay on my water regimen and I'm good to go. So social engagement's also important. If you ever start to get bored, I know I talked about part-time work, but hey, your people are going to reach out to you and want you to come back as a retired annuitant, right? They're going to be, when you leave, they're going to bring in a baby to do your job who has no clue. And so they're going to, and there's a whole lot of knowledge that you have that you're the only one that has it, you know, and I know some people like to hoard that knowledge, and that's all right. So do it. Okay. But come back as a retired annuitant. I know there's rules surrounding that. I forget. I think it's something like once you retire, you gotta stay away from the job for 6 months before you come back. But retiring annuitants, not bad work. Do that for a little while. And when folks start to get on your nerves, you can always leave. A year or two later, and you get bored and you want to come back as a retired annuitant. I'm sure they'll accept you with open arms. Okay. Now let's talk about withdrawal strategy. How much should I withdraw from my account, my deferred comp account, and in hopes that I don't run out of money in retirement? Okay. Here are some factors that you can't control when it comes to your withdrawal strategy. Longevity. I don't know how long I'm going to live. Investment returns. Am I going to earn 5, 4, 10? Who knows? Inflation. Inflation typically is 2.5%, 3% a year. We've learned over the past year or so, I think inflation was like double digits. We haven't seen that since the 80s. Who knows? Future expenses. That's another thing. I don't know if this roof is going to cave in on me or not. I don't know if my bucket I've been driving for 20 years is going to make it. Future expenses, we have no idea. So these are some things you can't control, but you want to at least have in the back of your mind. Here are a couple of different withdrawal strategies that you might want to consider. Here's the constant dollar amount withdrawal strategy. And typically I pick an amount, whatever it is. Don't take out more than you need, in my opinion, because you're probably going to be paying taxes unnecessarily. But here's an example of a person who says, you know what, I'm taking out 20 grand a year and I'm going to give myself a 3% raise every year. That's the plan. 20,000 every year in and year out. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm sure you hear this horn in my background. I'm working from home. And all right, got it. So yeah, so this is $20,000 a year with a 3% bump every year. So that's a strategy some people use, and it works on a $500,000 balance. Okay. Another strategy is a constant percent amount withdrawal strategy. I like this strategy. And I tell folks between 4 and 5% a year. It doesn't take into account inflation. It doesn't take into account market performance. You just say, I'm taking out 5% regardless. That's a good strategy. In many cases, that works. All right. But like I said, it ignores the inflation bump. If you want to include it, we can, because oftentimes inflation is negative. So why bother? But that's a strategy. So we have the constant dollar amount, we have a percent amount. You also can use what is called the required minimum distribution approach. The IRS has these tables that you can use when they're determining, like when you turn 72, which by the way, is it 73. They changed the rules. Once you're 72 and you're no longer working, you're required by law to take out a minimum. How much is it, Gene? Well, it depends on the life expectancy tables, but I can tell you on average, it's between 4 and 6% of your account, whether you need it or not. So I'm glad that popped up because I don't think that's a part of this presentation. But there's IRS tables that you can use that kind of give you a feel for how much you should take out per month or per year. So that's an option. Capital preservation method. This is the, let's see. That's the method that retirees back in the day used to use. Back in the 80s, when interest on savings accounts, on CDs were like double digits. Remember those days? I started out my career as a bank teller at Great Western Bank. I don't know if you guys remember Great Western Bank in downtown Oakland. And, ladies would come in with their passbooks and they would say, Gene, just give me the interest. I got $1 million in here, but I got $10,000 in interest. I want that, right? So that's called the capital preservation method. You're just pulling out your interest. Double-digit interest rates we haven't seen that, like I said, in a long time. Interest rates on savings account has increased to like 5%. So it may be worth it to consider it, but that's a capital preservation method. This is a method people use if they want to leave money to their kids, and they just pull out the interest. Okay. Let's talk about taxes briefly. I'm not a tax person. I just want to kind of give you some tidbits here. So, how is your retirement income? How is it taxed? It all depends. Depends on what you're invested in. So if you're in deferred comp and you are invested money in pre-tax in the normal deferred comp, that's pre-tax or before tax. Any money you pull out is going to be considered income that you're going to have to pay taxes on. Now, the good news is Empower will automatically withhold 20% federal, and if you live in California, 3%, right? If you move to Florida, move to Vegas, there's no state income tax. Don't have to worry about it, but you're still on the hook for that 20% federal. Okay, you're going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. It's going to say you took out X amount of dollars, of which X amount of dollars in federal and state was withheld. You'll hand that to your CPA, your tax advisor, and he or she will ante up for you. Take care of it. If 20% was too much, that means you get a refund. 20% wasn't enough, you'll cut a check for the difference, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. If you're invested in the Roth version of deferred comp, or you have a Roth IRA and you're pulling money out of that, typically how that works is any money that you withdraw from that account is tax-free. You don't have to pay any taxes. You've already paid it on the front end. You don't have to pay on the growth, provided that you're at least 59 and a half, the account's been open for at least 5 years. You're good to go. Okay. So again, taxation all depends on where your money is invested. Was it pre-tax or was it Roth? Okay. Is my Social Security going to be taxed? Well, in many cases, it probably will be, but check with your tax person to confirm. And here's kind of the basic rules. If your income, and this includes income from Acera, when you get your retirement check, that's considered income for purposes of taxation. If your income exceeds, if you're an individual, it exceeds 34,000, up to 50% of your Social Security benefits will be taxed. And here's kind of a breakdown if you file jointly. Again, your situation may be different. Check with your tax person, tax advisor to confirm whether or not your individual Social Security will be taxed. Okay. Taxable events. This has nothing to do with deferred comp, but say you have money sitting at a brokerage company in a taxable account, a trust account, or a joint account with you and your spouse or domestic partner, significant other, and you're invested in stocks or mutual funds. There's taxation involved, even though you may not even withdraw the money. You may want all of your capital gains or dividends or interest to be reinvested. It's still taxable. So you need to be prepared for that. What is capital gains? I bought a stock or I bought a mutual fund for $20 a share, and then I sell it for $40 a share. There's a $20 capital gain that you have to pay whether or not you pull it out or not. Same with dividends, same with interest. Even though you didn't take it out, it's still taxable. So you need to be prepared for that. Some of you probably already are aware of that. But when in doubt, talk to your tax person. Inflation, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about inflation. You guys know what it is. I'm going to skip through that. Inflation in a nutshell is, how much was a gallon of gas when you were in grade school and how much is a gallon of gas today? That's inflation. How much is the house you grew up in worth? What did your parents pay for it? What is it worth now? That's inflation. Seems like every 5 minutes I'm getting a bill from Comcast telling me they're raising my rates, or water, PG&E. That's all inflation. You need to be prepared for that. All right, so I'm going to skip that. Let's talk about where are you going to live. Deciding on where you want to live is all about, it's not just about the weather. It's more than the weather. Cost of living, quality of healthcare, the state that you live in, distance from family, leisure activity. These are things you want to think about when you're determining where you want to live. If you're the type of person, hey, Gene, I want to live in a state that has the best tax rates. Well, then here you go. Let's move to Delaware. Hawaii sounds nice. Wyoming, DC. Hey, let's go to Vegas, right? Cost of living. Let's move to Mississippi. M-I, crooked letter, I, crooked letter I, humpback I. I can't believe I said that, but that's how I was able to remember how to spell Mississippi back in the day when I was in grade school. But Hey, you want to move to Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri? These places have the lowest cost of living, right? Who has the best healthcare? Yep, California is number 4, if that's something you're interested in. So where it live really comes down to what's important to you. I will say, in my experience working with retirees, people say they want to move, but if your grandkids are in California, guess what? You're not going anywhere. Right. So just consider that if you have kids who are thinking about having some kids, you're probably going to live near them. So be prepared for that. Now, if by chance your kids live in California and maybe they decide not to have kids, that means you've saved more than you need to. So you can go ahead and move. You have extra. More is better, I always say. Long-term care, that's a big deal. It's expensive if you stay in California. I have a client whose mom was paying $10,000 a month on long-term care. It's expensive. Buying long-term care insurance, in my view, it's not worth it. You're not getting the most bang for your buck. It's gotten ridiculously expensive. When you think about long-term care, you think about insurance in general, they don't want you to ever have to use it. Like when you buy car insurance, they don't want you to use it, so they can just keep collecting premiums. But here's what happened when long-term care insurance was created. More people used it than the insurance companies ever imagined. So therefore, a lot of insurance companies started going out of business. And so therefore, you have a fewer number of folks, insurance company, offering long-term care insurance. That reduces competition. And what do we learn in accounting or in economics? When competition is low or scarce, prices skyrocket, and that's what we're seeing, right? But what's included in long-term care? I mean, you don't have to, get the Cadillac of long-term care insurance if you still want it, but bathing, dressing, home or housework, grocery shopping is part of long-term care. Here's the cost per day of different types of long-term care: homemaker service, adult daycare, assisted living, nursing home. It's pricey, extremely pricey. Okay. Oftentimes, if you bought a policy, you're going to get $100 a day. And over to the far right, private room is $267. So you're coming out of pocket a lot of money. You're paying $700 a month just to get $100 a day in care. To me, that's not worth it. But, check with folks that are selling it. If you want to get my opinion, or at least have me read through the fine print of a policy that you're considering, I'm more than happy to do that. Okay. Medicare, Medicaid covers a portion, but not nearly enough, especially if you stay in California. So don't depend on or expect Medicare or Medicaid to cover most of your long-term care. Okay, let's talk briefly about how we're doing on time. Let's talk a little bit about estate planning. Again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but it's important that you start thinking about that. Why do you need an estate plan? Well, can't take it with you, right? Most people believe when I talk about estate planning or trusts, etc., they think, oh, that's for rich people. Hey, if you own a home in the San Francisco Bay Area that's borderline or pretty close to being paid off, you're considered rich. And that's an asset you want to protect, right? So within your estate plan, think about your heirs. Who do you want your beneficiaries to be? Your family, friends, etc. Charitable institution. I have a lot of folks who are considering that. I have a cousin who says, hey, Gene, I want you to make sure that all of my money goes to Grambling University. Right? So charities is huge if that's something you're interested in terms of estate planning. Okay. The other portion of estate planning that is important is end of life medical care, guardianship of children. That's another big one. People assume that, say you have a child that you're still taking care of at home, you assume that'll all get worked out if something happens to you. Well, there's a lot of infighting. So-and-so said I'm supposed to take care of the baby, or, so then there's a lot of fighting going on. Let's skip all of that. Let's put it all down in writing and make sure that's taken care of. Here are some other components associated with an estate plan. You got wills and trust. If that's all you have is a will, that is not enough. The whole point really in an estate plan or creating trusts is you want to avoid probate. What is probate? Probate is that process where your beneficiaries have to pay an attorney 25% of your assets. Probate is the process where the court decides who should get what, right? Probate is the process where your distant cousin that you haven't seen in 30 years comes out of the woodworks and says they're entitled to something. That's probate. You want to avoid that at all costs. A will is important for things that can't be registered to a trust. You want to have that, but you want to have a will and a trust. Okay, very, very important. If you want need some more information on that, let me know. If you're interested in possibly setting some time aside for an attorney, I believe you guys have access to, there's some during open enrollment. It's like some sort of MetLife Legal or something that many of you probably are paying for and didn't know it. You can use that. Just call them up, say, hey, I'm interested in hiring an attorney to set up an estate plan, and they'll set you up. And you'll be able to set up an estate plan, set up trust, wills, healthcare directives, etc., at a reduced rate. So I would encourage you to at least look into that. All right. What's next? Sarah website. Let's determine how much you're going to get in terms of your pension. SSA.gov, another area where you want to find out if the windfall elimination applies to you. You want to see how much you're going to get at age 62, 66, 67, or 70. Medicare, IRS, these are some websites that you want to tap into to get some valuable information. Okay. You need some additional help. You just want to bounce some ideas off some folks. Here we are, fantastic individuals. You have Mark Tomei on the left, Jason Brumman on the right, myself in the middle. That was about a 15-year-old picture, 14 when I had hair. So I probably need to update that. But to get in contact with us, 855-969-4572, hit option 3. You can schedule an appointment with us online at AlamedaCountyDCP.com. Click on personalized guidance, and then you can choose a virtual appointment or a phone appointment. If you want to bypass the 855 number in the website, you can call my office directly, 510-562-6355. That's 510-562-6355. Let my assistant know that you're a county employee, or you can email me at g_Hilliard, HILLIARD, at emergefinancial.com. Okay, 855 website, call my office directly. Okay, utilize the retirement income calculator like I talked about earlier by going to the Alameda County DCP website. If you want to increase the amount of money that's coming out of your paycheck, you go to the same site. As you can see here, it says save more for retirement. This year, you can contribute up to the IRS limit of $22,500. There's a little hyperlink that says increase your contribution. Boom, hit that. And then you can increase your contributions. Okay, so with that, I'd love to entertain questions.